What's going on, guys? Salute, Brendan. What's going on? You good? I hope you're well. What's going on, guys? Glad we did a big live stream yesterday. I'm glad having you guys on again. Let's talk some more boxing, guys. Obviously, there's been some fascinating news. Um, Keen says, Keen Al Noah says, waiting for you, man. Thank you, appreciate it. Thanks for waiting and appreciate the support. Yeah, so we've got some big news over the weekend. I want to basically talk about what we've witnessed over the weekend. Brown and Batabiev started off the weekend. We actually saw a performance there from Batabiev. He stopped Brown. And then obviously there was the talks about Canelo. Then, today we're hearing that Ugas and Spence has been finalized. So the WBA have approved that fight, which is great news. Great news. Yeah, smash the like button, guys. I appreciate if you smash the like. If any of you want to come on, let's talk some boxing. If any of you want to come on and talk some boxing, let's do it. Come on, so we can talk about the situation, talk about the fight. I'd love to have you guys on and let's talk about Canelo Batabiev, talk about Spence Ugas. I want to know your guys' opinion about it. So yeah, if you want to come on, you're more than welcome to come on and let's talk about it. I've left the link there in the sidebar. I believe I've left the link in the sidebar, so you guys should have the link if you wanna hop on and jump on. You're more than welcome, and we can talk some boxing. Whoever wants to jump on, let me know, and we can jump on and talk some boxing. But yeah, what did you guys? Oh yeah, the Chisora Parker fight was a cracker as well. Great fight. I still have Canelo beating Beterbiev 60-40. A lot of people think Beterbiev wins that fight. There is a lot of people that think Beterbiev beats Canelo. I personally am of the I've got the opinion that I think Canelo wins, but it's a very difficult fight. It's a very tough fight for Canelo. He's going to be tested in that fight. It's a very, 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 very tough fight because Beterbiev is a dangerous, dangerous guy. Very dangerous. They aren't wrong for thinking that. Yeah, they're not wrong. They're not wrong because he's a monster. Let's be brutally honest. He's a monster. Um, if anyone wants to come on, let me know. The links in the chat. You can hop on. We can talk some boxing. Um, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see how it all plays out. To be honest with you, I'm looking forward to Canelo hopefully taking that fight next. I would love for Canelo to take that fight next. It'd be very fascinating and interesting to see how he gets on with the size, strength, power of Beterbiev. But then I'm also interested in to see how Spence gets on with Ugas. I don't look. A lot of people are writing Ugas off. I don't think that's an easy fight in the slightest. I think Ugas is a very, very dangerous fight for Spence. I think that will be a very tough fight. And I actually think wouldn't be surprised if we see an upset in that fight and Ugas pulling it off because Ugas is a very skilled fighter. He showed that against Pacquiao. I was very impressed the way he controlled and you could say dominated that fight. I know it was kind of close, but he controlled the pace, dominated, and he looked great. To be honest, he looked great in that fight. So yeah, I'm looking forward to how Ugas and Spence plays out, and then how Crawford fits in the mix. I won't be surprised if Crawford fights Danny next, even though a lot of you not really interested in that. I won't be surprised because I just think that Crawford needs a dance partner. He definitely does. Okay, Brendan says, I just think Canelo's skills fill in the gap. So Brendan says, I think Canelo's skills fill in the gaps that Arthur's size and own skills create. Yeah, well, it's hard. It's a tough one, that. It's a tough one because I think Canelo will be in a very difficult fight. Canelo's not faced anyone of Beterbiev's level of recent times. You could say the last fight he had of that kind of level was Golovkin, and they were both very difficult fights for him. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how he gets on with an Arthur Beterbiev. That is by a very, very difficult fight. D Garcia said, I think Spence stops Ugas. Maybe it's a good one though. It's a very good one. It's a tough fight. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure, to be honest with you. D Garcia says, I don't think Canelo stops him, but I think Canelo will frustrate him. Um, I don't know. I think it's going to be hard for Canelo to. I think Canelo might have to stop him. If he doesn't, it's going to be hard going 12 rounds with that kind of guy. He's tough. He's powerful. I think Canelo's going to have to hit and hurt him. Brendan Jackson said, not to mention Canelo's own power. Though one thing to note is Arthur will likely constantly press forward if he fights Canelo. Yeah, he will, and that's going to be interesting to see how Canelo deals with that pressure, size, strength. It's going to be interesting to see how Canelo gets on with that because that's going to be rough. Canelo Beterbiev will make that fight very rough for him. So it's going to be interesting to see how he deals with that. You know, Canelo would outbox. Yeah, I think Canelo would outbox him, but how will he deal with the size, the strength? I think it'll be difficult. So Brendan Jackson says Ugas v Spence will be good fight, but Spence will probably outbox him like how he did Danny. I don't know. That's a difficult one because I think Ugas is a better boxer than Danny. I think Ugas is more skilled. He's bigger. He's longer. He's got a huge reach. So I don't know if he can outbox Ugas the way he did Danny. I think Ugas's forte is to box. So yeah, I think it's going to be hard for Spence to outbox him. I do. I think that's a hard fight. I think Ugas is a very good fighter, very good fighter. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that fight, guys. If everyone wants to jump on, make sure you hit the link and jump on. Smash the like button, everyone in the stream as well. I'd appreciate if you smash the like button and get your questions in. So Cali Mexican says Beterbiev is too slow for Canelo. Yeah, possibly. He's a bit robotic and a bit one-paced. That's what I noticed. That some people think his age showed up yet against Brown. I'm not so sure. I thought he looked good. I just think Canelo has elite level skills. Brendan Jackson said, yes, Ugas has better feet than Danny. Yeah, he does. And I think he's just a better boxer overall. I think that would be a much, much harder fight for Spence than Danny was, if I'm honest with you. I think Danny was a smaller guy and he wasn't as skilled as Spence. So I think that made the fight a lot easier for Spence. I don't think this will be that easy, though. I think this is going to be difficult, if I'm totally honest. I think Ugas is a completely different kettle of fish altogether. Ugas is a very, very skilled boxer. Um, Guys, anyone wants to jump on the live stream? Let's talk some boxing. Yeah, guys, everyone in the stream, you can smash the like button, get your questions in. The more questions that get in, the better. Okay, so here's another question. Flo Jab says, I think Beterbiev won't be able to withstand Canelo's combinations. He will eventually get clipped and countered. Yeah, possibly. Possibly. I think that's a possible. I think Canelo can hurt Beterbiev. Some people think that Canelo can't hurt Beterbiev. I beg to differ. Brendan Jackson says Spence probably won't respect Ugas's power. Yeah, Ugas isn't a big puncher, is he? That could be his problem because Spence might just walk straight through him. But we'll have to wait and see. Will Spence be able to hurt Ugas? Ugas is quite tough. Ugas is a very tough guy, so that's going to be difficult as well. Ugas is quite tough, so I don't think Ugas is going to fall down. So Thierry Henry says, did you watch David Moreau win v Fox last night? And do you believe he's a top 5 boxer? Actually, I didn't see that fight. I didn't see that fight. Do I believe he's a top 5 boxer at 168? It's a tough one. Did he fight Atlantis Fox? Did David Morrell fight Atlantis Fox? I don't. It's a tough one. I think I want to see him tested. If was it Atlantis Fox he fought Thierry Henry? Yeah, well, Atlantis Fox got stopped by Liam Williams. And Liam Williams is 160 pounder. I need to see more from Morrell, to be honest with you. That's not really a credible win. Atlantis Fox got stopped by a 160 pounder, so nah, I wouldn't. Like the 168 division, who is there? There's Benavidez, Plant, there's not a lot of guys, there's not a lot of guys at 168. 168 is not the greatest division. Obviously, Canelo, he's the number one. Benavidez, Plant, who else is there? Callum Smith's moved up, so to be fair, there isn't a lot there at 168. There isn't a lot there. What is it? There's like recycle guys like Anthony Durrell and stuff. So Thierry Henry, I don't know. He might be there by default, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. And we need to see more. If he's fighting Atlantis Fox was well beaten by Liam Williams, and Liam Williams a 160 pounder. So we need to see more there, Thierry Henry. I think Spence wins by decision. Ugas is kind of slow and not enough work output. I don't know if Ugas is slow. I think Ugas is long and rangy and he can box brilliantly. I'm not sure about that. I'm kind of in two minds. I think it's difficult. It's possible, but I agree he needs to be tested. But he's definitely a stud prospect. Atlantis isn't tough. You're right. Yeah, Atlantis Fox. He got beaten well by Liam Williams, and Liam Williams got beat by Andrade. So yeah, that's not really a stern test. What about David Morrell v someone like Benavidez? That'd be a good fight. Benavidez is apparently the guy that Canelo is avoiding, according to Mayweather. So maybe that could be a good fight. There's another guy at 168 as well, Balanga. Maybe David Morrell against Balanga. Plant v Charlo, Brendan Jackson says. Plant v Charlo. That'd be a good fight. That'd be a very good fight. I like that fight. I like that. Plant's been calling Charlo out as well. That'd be a good fight. That'd be an interesting matchup. That would be an interesting matchup for sure. Flo Jab says Balanga sucks. Balanga sucks. Yeah, Balanga got dropped in his last fight. He didn't look too good. But they are building him up. What's up, Steve? What's up, Steve? And I hope you're good, man. I've got the link in the thing if you want to come on, brother. But yeah, he's methodical. Who are we talking about there, Stephen? Who's methodical? Are we talking about Balanga? Are we talking about saw a recent video Plant video with Plant and Charlo face to face talking about their up to fight each other. Yeah, I like that fight. I like that fight. I think that's a good fight. But didn't Charlo just say that he's not interested in fighting? I swear he said he's not interested in fighting Charlo because he didn't have, or Benavidez because he didn't have a belt. But then he's talking about fighting Plant, who also hasn't got a belt now. I'm a bit confused there. Red Star for like Balanga is full of bling, but no skills. Yeah, Balanga, no skills. Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think Balanga's. I don't know. I think there's a lot of hype behind Balanga. Fury beats White. Yeah, Fury beats them all. But I think Usyk could beat Fury though. I ain't gonna lie. I think Usyk is. Red Star says that Balanga has no skills. Usyk is a man with full of skills. That guy has got skills to pay the bills. Usyk is unbelievable. One of the best fighters in the world, without question. Without question. So what's being said here? Balanga is full of bling with no skills, lol. Brendan Jackson says, obviously, he doesn't think Plant would murk him like Benavidez would. Yeah, but you know what? I think Plant's got a horrible style for him. I think Plant's got a horrible style for Charlo. Plant moves and boxes very well. And Charlo doesn't do well against movers. Jake Paul will knock out Tommy Fury. I have to agree. I have to agree. Tommy Fury's like Jake Paul. He's a novice. You know what I mean? He's not a elite level skilled boxer. He's not a great prospect. I think there's a good chance that Jake Paul does him in as well. Usyk is a Loma at heavyweight. Yeah, he is. I think he might even be better than Loma, to be honest with you. I think Usyk is special. I do. I think he might beat Fury, I think he might beat Fury. So I would love to see Balanga improve for sure. He has crazy KO power. Yeah, but he's got limited skills at the minute. Like he looks a bit wild, a bit reckless. Defense isn't that great. Red Star for Life says Plant would get knocked out by Charlo. What do you guys think? Do you agree with Red Star? Would Plant get knocked out by Charlo? I got Usyk being too fast for Fury. Yeah, or some may say, Brendan, that Usyk may be too small for Fury. That's what a lot of people seem to say, right? Plant beats Charlo, in my opinion. Too slick and has enough durability to pull a decision. You're probably right, to be honest. Plant would box up Charlo, in my humble, honest opinion. Yeah, I think a lot of people were impressed with his performance against Canelo. I think Canelo would destroy Charlo, by the way. How good do you think Cambosis is? He's all right. He's all right. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he's good. He's a good fighter. He beat Tiafimo, but I don't think he's as good as what some people are making him out to be. Like he's all of a sudden this best guy and he's the best out there. And not for me. Not for me. He's good. Don't get me wrong. And I think he's got a chance against Haney. But I think Loma beats him more. Jake Paul can't hate this kid too much, but he's walking around at 200 pounds. He should start fighting guys that are heavyweights like he is. Yeah, but to be honest with you, that guy that he was fighting, Woodley, he was big as well. I know he's a thing. He's big. Woodley's massive. EK says Fury's size and range may be an issue for Usyk. Yeah, possibly. Possibly. Little Penny, my man. How's it going, man?
Hi Imran, how are you?
I'm all good, man. Oh, it's always great talking to you, Little Penny, man.
Yeah, no worries, man, no worries. Hey, did you see that Jake Paul KO?
I did. What a
Wow.
devastating knockout. What did you make of that?
It was a devastating knockout, but I'm not gonna give him too much credit because man, Woodley had 2 weeks notice. He probably didn't
Yeah,
even train.
yeah,
And he wasn't as what do you call him? He wasn't as chiseled as he was in the first fight because you can tell he
yeah, I
trained in the
agree.
first fight. So yeah, I mean, he was. That's exactly what we're supposed to do for someone who just took it on 2 weeks' notice. So yeah, it
Yeah,
was a great. Uh, Imran, you know what we were talking about before with me, yourself, and Ray about
yeah,
um, the in America where like the in terms of the demographics, there isn't a lot of like white supporters in boxing
yeah,
per
yeah,
se.
yeah.
Well, I think they just got an answer yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
'Cause, man, that
Really?
was
Do you
and
think
he's
do you
starting
think
to get.
Jake's gonna be good enough though?
Yeah, but Imran, I'm not. I'm not like these other boxing fans who are hating on him. Like I said,
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
see
yeah,
it on
yeah.
social media, man. A lot of boxing fans they don't like that he's in boxing. I actually like that he is in boxing because
Yeah,
he's giving new eyes to boxing, and plus he's giving some of these boxers like Amanda Serrano and some of
yeah,
these
yeah,
other
yeah.
boxers like he's giving them another platform to because now the Serrano Katie Taylor fight it's like big now. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
so big now because Jake Paul gave Serrano more popularity per se.
Yeah, for sure. You know what? I just did a video earlier about it, and I said that we need to give Jake Paul credit, man, because irrespective of what
Yeah,
you think of Woodley, right? Woodley's a fighter. This is a guy
yeah,
that's was a UFC. He's a UFC legend, you can say, right? And
yeah,
they still
yes,
can throw hands. They may not be boxers, but they can still throw hands. And in the
yeah,
first
true.
fight, he gave Jake some trouble in that fight, and Jake
Yeah, he
Jake, and
did.
to be fair, the fight was good, decent up until that devastating knockout. But what it was more impressive is the fact that UFC fighters can take punishment, right?
Yep.
And he flattened him. He literally flattened him.
Yeah.
Like that was a devastating knockout. That was knockout. That was probably knockout of the year, Little Penny.
Yeah, 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 I agree. And you know what? On the other undercard, Frank Gore fought Darren Williams. Frank Gore said on the post-fight press conference, he
Mm,
said that when Jake Paul first started out, when he
mm,
first fought I can't remember who, Nate Robinson, he
yeah,
said that he could have beaten that version of Jake Paul because he was so green. But he said that now that he's improved so much and he's so young, he said, I can't beat this Jake Paul right now because he's taking boxing so seriously. And he said he respected that. And that's what I like about Jake Paul. he's taking boxing seriously, man. It's not. It's just not an. It's not an exhibition for him. He actually wants to be a boxer, I reckon.
A question to you then, Little Penny. Does he beat Tommy Fury?
I think he might.
Yeah, yeah.
I think he might. Because he's Tommy Fury. To me, he's like a male model, man. I don't know if he's a boxer. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think he even treats boxing, because in boxing, dude, you got to treat it seriously, man, or else you'll get knocked out like what Woodley did yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Do you think people are do you think people are looking too much into Tommy Fury because of that Fury name?
Yeah, he's not like his brother. It's kind of like Bobby Pacquiao and Manny Pacquiao. It's two completely different people.
Yeah. A lot of people, I think, are just, especially the British public, just seem to think Tommy will destroy Jake, just because of the fact that you know, he's been fighting from a young age. But I was speaking to Ray, and Ray actually said that Tommy Fury has no amateur experience. He has no, like, Tommy Fury hardly has any amateur experience. And he's not on the, he's not, like I said, I think Jake Paul wins that fight personally if they were to fight.
Yeah, I agree.
That's just what I think. Steven, what's going on?
Am I on?
Yeah, you're on, man. You good?
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about everything. Jake Paul's vicious knockout of Tyron Woodley. Look, you know what, Steven? You say something, and I like what you say. You say he cleaned his clock.
Yeah.
He cleaned his clock.
Yeah, he cleaned his clock, man. That dude, man. You know what, man? There's gonna be a time where we're gonna have to come to the realization that them Paul brothers, man, they with the business. Them dudes ain't no joke, man. And I think they real competitors in boxing at this point. You gotta. I mean, they forcing us to give them consideration.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. You know the news that I want to speak to you about, though, Stephen and Little Penny. Spence and Ugas has been approved by the WBA. Yesterday, you were saying, Stephen, right? You were saying that the governing bodies have to come together and they need to make right decisions. And you were saying, and you were right, saying that rightfully. But what beautiful news that actually, you know, Spence and Ugas has been approved, and we will get that fight most likely in March. You know, that is a cracker. Let's be honest. I know people are saying Spence. That's a cracker, though. That's a 50-50 fight for me.
Yeah, it was a 50-50 fight for me too, man. Check it out, man. Ugas has shown that he's one of the, not just another welterweight, but one of the top welterweights in the welterweight division. That dude, he handled, if you really want to be honest about it, he handled Crawford better than, I mean, he handled Sean Porter better than Errol Spence Jr. did.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah, man, I agree. I think Ugas beat Porter. He didn't get the decision because he didn't have the name at that time. So I think the politically more connected fighter in Porter got the decision. And
Imran, it wasn't as close as Errol Spence. See, Errol Spence, if you take away that knockdown, that win is, you don't know who won that fight. But with that, when Ugas fought Sean Porter, you know exactly who won that fight, man.
Yeah, I agree. Little Penny, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Steven. Steven, I'm 82, bro. I'm same as you. And I also want to win the lotto too, like what you said yesterday. But anyway, just going back to our issue. I think it's a 50-50 fight too, because I think Spence is vulnerable. But poor Bud. What's Bud gonna do now? Like, so who is he going to fight?
I don't have a clue. That's why I was gonna ask you guys. What does Terence Crawford do? Because here's the thing, right? I know, Little Penny, you said yesterday that it should be a 50-50. But if if now Spence does beat Ugas, just say Spence beats Ugas, and Spence now holds 3 belts, right?
Oh man. Yep.
How there's no way Spence is going to accept 50-50 because he's going to say, I've got 3 belts. I've cleaned out virtually the whole of the welterweight division, right?
Mm-hmm.
I deserve more than 50-50. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, he might be right there, and that will make it even more complicated. But I reckon Spence he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. He'll have to accept a lower purse because because beating Porter is not good enough because Spence beat Porter first. And in that scenario, Spence got more belts, so he has to take I'm not even talking about 55-45. He probably have to take a 60-40 split.
Mm.
Yeah, he gonna have to, man. Because beating new guys is gonna automatically put Errol Spence Jr. in the driving seat. In the driver's seat, you're gonna be able to
Steven,
command whatever it
Steven,
is.
hey Steven, I'm worried about Errol Spence, dude.
Me too, man. He suffered a lot of wear and tear on his body, man. The last couple of years, an eye, and then he suffered that horrendous car accident, man. He might be kind of shaky, man. I told Aaron this a long time ago, man, when they were talking about that Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao Earl Spence Jr. fight. That I don't know how much, I don't know, when they announced that he had that eye tear. I said maybe it may be over for him, man. It may be over for Earl Spence to be the great God, the great boxing star that we wanted him to be because he sustained so much injury.
Yeah, I agree, Steven. I was thinking the same thing.
Do you think, you know what? There was one point where we were talking about Errol Spence potentially taking over boxing and actually going up to 160 to fight Canelo. I remember he was talking about it. Errol Spence was talking about it. And now it's kind of like, it's looking difficult now that he even beats Crawford at this point. Even we're talking about Ugas being a 50-50. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So yeah, man. Like I said a couple of years ago, I think Spence would have beaten Ugas comfortably, to be honest.
Yeah.
But now, like Steven said, there's a lot of injuries, man. There's a lot of doubt. There's a lot of answers to be. In that Garcia fight, there wasn't a lot. Like Garcia didn't really take it to him like the way I expected him to. What do you think, Steven?
No, I disagree with I disagree with you there. I think
Why? What do you think?
okay, this is what I think. Earl Spence Jr.
Mm.
He's such a machine. He's so it's almost like he has tunnel vision, and you can't knock him off his game. He performs the same way every time, and I think that he was just too strong, and his chin is so durable, and he just posed that big of a issue to um, Denny Garcia that he couldn't do anything but stand there and get punched on. He was like a fish out of water. That's
Mm.
what you think, little Penny?
Steve, I was surprised that he didn't knock him out because halfway through the fight, we all knew that Mikey wasn't in for it, right? He was just going backwards, and I was surprised that Spence didn't pull the trigger, like really go after him, like how he went after Kell Brook. Now I don't know if that's because he had just had a car accident. You don't want to like go in there with guns blazing, thinking that you're invincible, because obviously he found out like a year before that he wasn't.
Uh-huh.
But I also don't like the fact that during a sparring session with headgear on, with like 12-ounce or 14-ounce gloves, that his eye got injured. So that tells me his punching resistance in his head, like on his head, is not good anymore. Now we couldn't find that out because Mikey didn't hit him in the head that often. But the fact that happened in sparring, that tells me, dude, I don't know, man. That's why I'm worried about him. Like, I don't even know if he should be fighting anymore.
Well, one thing is, man, they need to, as far as sparring, these boxers got to start taking it easy in sparring, because a lot of these injuries and stuff, and a lot of the head damage and the head trauma, that don't come from fighting in the ring. It comes from sparring, and these guys put all of everything into sparring, and they beat themselves up. They beat themselves up in the process. The bodies undergo a lot of trauma and a lot of stress. And if you end up with somebody who, I heard that Errol Spence Jr. He like to go hard, man. He like to he say he with the business, and he like to bring it to people. And if he had another dog in there, sparring that went back down, because it's a lot of guys that are just as good as Errol Spence Jr. that we never hear about. If he had one of them guys in there in the ring with him, they ain't taking it easy, and he's compromising his whole career just by sparring. So they need to start taking it easy on sparring. What y'all say?
Yeah, man. Of course, because obviously sparring is practice, isn't it?
Just
Yeah, but
practice.
Imran, Steve, Errol Spence is not like in his early 30s or mid 30s, right? He's in his late 20s. Am I correct?
Yeah, no, he's in his early 30s.
Oh, is he? Okay. All right. Okay. Because I was just thinking, with a lot of guys spar, right? And you never. How many boxers do you know in sparring that had their eye socket get injured? Not many, right?
Well, if you end up going 100 miles, if you end up going all in, you're going full throttle. That's bound to happen. Somebody, if you ain't hold back.
Steven, but you got headgear though, dude, and you got it's 14, 16-ounce gloves. Like it shouldn't penetrate that much.
Yeah, you would think, but if a dude is willing and he ain't holding back, because the headgear, it kind of exposes some of the vulnerable points in your face. If you can make contact with that, then I can see how it can happen. I'm just saying. I ain't saying that. I ain't saying that he don't have a vulnerability that we ain't seen. But I'm just saying that a lot of these dudes, they beat themselves up in sparring. A lot of sparring, sparring is for iron sharpening iron. It ain't for going all in. It's to learn, to practice. It's a develop technique.
Yeah. Hey, Stephen, you know what? I thought that, with Ugas, I thought he in his boxing life, I thought he got a bad deal because after beating Pacquiao, like now a lot of because he's not well known and his name doesn't resonate. A lot of these organizations, or especially the WBA, that he would have to fight the toughest fights, like the Errol Spencers and the Bud Crawfords. I thought that because usually when you win a title, you would then take up a lot of tune-up fights, like what Kambosos is planning to do now. But now I actually think that he's lucky now because Errol Spence is a beatable opponent now.
Yeah, he's a beatable opponent. And I don't listen, man. I said earlier, and I really, truly, truly believe this. I think Ugas is that good. I think he can potentially. I mean, I think he could beat Errol Spence. I think he could beat Earl. And I definitely think he could beat um Terrence Crawford. So he definitely did come out on top. Beat Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao was the best thing to ever happen to Ugas because we got no choice but to see him. Pac-Man, if you really want to be honest about it, he was really the face of boxing. It wasn't AJ, it wasn't Canelo, it was Pac-Man. Pac-Man, still even at that age, he was so revered and so respected that he was still, and just and Ugas was the guy that took him down. So,
But Stephen, I'm a bit peeved off of that situation because historically, when the torch is passed from like Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. to De La Hoya to Pacquiao, usually you pass it to the same person that's the same as you, like a warrior, like a come forward fighter. Pacquiao, one of the reasons why Pacquiao, and I got this from the Philippines, by the way. One of the reasons why Pacquiao wanted to fight Spence is because Spence is like him. He's a warrior, come forward, offensive fighter. You know what I mean? And when that fight was postponed, and now it's Ugas who's a counterpuncher, I was thinking, oh man, like it would have been really good if it was Spence, and then Spence beat him. That way, it's a passing of the torch that he really wanted, because he didn't want to fight Ugas. Like he really wanted to fight Spence, right?
yeah, he really wanted to fight Spence, but those are semantics, man. The pet and listen, I respect you a great deal. I'm not saying it in a disparaging way, but those are semantics. Those are tropes. But those are tropes that you can't put a lot of ifs, a lot of credence into. Now,
Yeah.
what one thing we do know is that Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao or Manny Pacquiao. I need to stop saying Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao, but I'm so used to saying it. But Manny Pacquiao was so he was put in a conundrum. He was put behind the eight ball because of fate. Fate brought him to. There is a such thing as fate. When you set out on a journey, only fate dictates your destination, and his destination was to beat Ugas. It was and Ugas being a counterpuncher, I don't you know I don't think that lessens, because when you say that, kind of like diminishes Ugas' victory or his status. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
We got Mike in the house. Mike, what's going on?
Hey, Mike.
What up, Mike? Biggity Mike.
What's up, guys?
Good, man. We're all good. We're all good.
Oh,
Good
man,
having you here.
Just enjoying the conversation right
Yeah, man. We got some big news. I don't know if I got your take. Were you there? Yes. I don't know if you came on yesterday, but we had a good chat yesterday about Canelo and
No.
Beterbiev. Also, we were talking about Ugas Spence, which looks like might happen as well. So, yeah, start off with Canelo Beterbiev, man. What did you make of Beterbiev's performance against Brown? And do you think Canelo beats Beterbiev?
No, I think it was a typical performance, from what you would expect from Beterbiev. So it's he went in there. I mean, a lot of people thought he lost fight. And he just looked like a beast, man. Even with the cut in his forehead, I mean, he that didn't stop him, and he went out there and did his thing, and still, keeping that reputation alive. That he's just a monster. As far as Canelo, man, I don't know, man. I mean, we've talked about this before. Remember, we had a little debate in the past where I said that I didn't think Canelo would go through Beterbiev and Benavidez without an L, but it's for me, it's just hard to gauge, man, because I haven't seen Canelo campaign heavyweight. So a lot of times we make we kind of give the benefit of the doubt to like the greater fighter, or the fighter that has the name, but sometimes you don't need to be that great when you have that big of a size advantage. So a lot of people saw Beterbiev's performance, and they were kind of bringing up that maybe Canelo would beat him. Maybe some people were saying that potentially stops him, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't know what you guys think, but I'm not completely convinced. I think the game plan matters a lot. I don't know if what I'm thinking is if Beterbiev can take from the Triple G fight, since I think it's going to be like a simple fight. And if he makes some modifications, which in my opinion, the modification would be Beterbiev going more to the body, because as we know, Triple G forgot to throw to the body. And I think, you got to give Canelo credit for that, because I think he's kind of like the one who kind of eliminated that from Triple G, because Triple G was concerned with the counters, with big power punches coming from Canelo to the body. We know that he's probably, he's not the best. He's probably top 3 body puncher in the game. So we know that Canelo's lethal with his body shot. If Beterbiev comes in and he makes that small modification and tries to slow down Canelo Alvarez, kind of push him and wear him down, then then maybe Canelo will have problems, man. We don't know, you know what I mean? Because I have no idea. Like I said, I don't have a good feel. It's more of a feel thing. I don't have a good feel how Canelo would look as a light heavyweight, because he's not carrying. So I'm not even sure going straight to light heavyweight, how long it would take him to even be acclimated. So, man, a lot of times fighters go up to another weight class and they might take 2-3 fights before they even fight the main guy. You know what I mean? Canelo Alvarez, I'm not sure if he would even do that. So he would probably just jump straight to a better, and that creates a lot more question as well. So
even with,
I don't know, man. That's a tough one, man. But in terms of the matchup, the matchup is incredible. That would be an insane. Steven, what were you gonna say?
With Macabre, no, I was just saying, even with Macabre, I mean, man, if I could say something that you were 100% accurate, saying you don't need to be that great if you have that much of a size advantage on somebody. And even when you look at Macabre, man, because I was looking at him when they were shaking hands and stuff, and Macabre was significantly bigger than Canelo. So, like you said, we haven't seen a campaign, so it's kind of hard for us to say. We can say it's a cherry pick, and my sentiments about it. I'm gonna think it's a cherry pick, but I mean those guys are big. The fact of the truth of the matter is that Beterbiev he's a monster, dude. That dude's a monster.
Yeah, he's a monster, man.
He's
really,
voracious
you know
monster.
what? And you made me think about something, Steven. I was thinking about this earlier. I'm thinking maybe Reynoso going up to cruiserweight. Maybe he was thinking in a way where it's like he's trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Where like they're moving up to cruiserweight, right? And trying to get another division, but at the same time, they're trying to test out how Canelo would look or perform against a big dude like that, right? Like a cruiserweight, a guy with that type of weight, with that type of, and then based on the way Canelo might look there, the way he handles, then they could kind of gauge and say, you know what? I think we could take on Beterbiev. Maybe there's strategy to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with Mike there. I think there might be a little bit of strategy there. You know what? What do you make of Mike? What do you make of them saying that like Macabre's a cherry pick and stuff?
I'll let EM speak first.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing?
Hey man.
What's up,
Good.
What's up, E?
So sorry, I was just like multitasking, but you guys are talking about Beterbiev v Canelo and Macabre?
Yeah.
So I think
what? Go on. EK.
No, sorry. Ask the question, Imran. Sorry.
No. I was gonna say to you, to EK and Mike, I want to know your opinions. Like a lot of people are questioning Canelo and saying that fighting Macabre is a cherry pick. He's going up to cruiserweight to cherry pick a title and then come back down. What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is people are gonna try to nitpick hate comments on anything Canelo does, but like they won't have the same energy with any of the other fighters. Canelo just fought like he just unified in a single year, fought 4 fights in a year. He can have a tune-up fight if he wants. And Macabre isn't even a tune-up fight in my opinion, because he's never faced a cruiserweight before. So there's a danger like this, and I do 100% agree with M. I was making this point last live. is that Reynoso and that whole team is like one of the smartest teams in the world. And anything to do with Canelo is going to be, it's not going to be like stupid. So the way why they're fighting Makabu, if that fight even does happen, is because they want to get Canelo's body acclimated to if he ever faces Beterbiev, which he'll have to if he wants to unify the 175-pound. So I don't think any of these fights that Canelo, and Canelo deserves an easy fight after the year he's had. And I'm not even saying Makarbu is an easy fight, but if he faces a lesser opponent, Canelo's gonna fight more than once a year. If he has one easy opponent, he's gonna go fight a hard fight. If he fights in like say January or whatever, like February, he can fight in October, November, or even Cinco de Mayo with an actual like meaningful fight. So he can have an easy fight in a year, and as long as he's, Canelo, like, just like with Yildirim, he fought Yildirim, but he fought three champions, three main guys that year. Who cares if he fights one Yildirim a year, as long as he's fighting champions? No one people don't have the same energy when it comes to Charlo not facing Boo Boo Andre. Like there's other fighters. Why is everyone waiting? Like Callum Smith should be fighting someone too. Daniel Jacobs should come back and fight someone too. Like if he wants, like there's so many other variations, but no one's going to be talking about that.
Good points there. Good points there from EK. What do you make, Mike? What do you make when, going up to fight Makabu instead of, tackling the light heavyweight guys? I know you said it's a strategic thing, but what do you make of a lot of people giving him criticism? Like Bradley went all in on Canelo and said, why are you going and fighting Makabu? Nobody cares about that. Nobody wants that. We want to see you fight Benavidez or Beterbiev. What's your thought on that, Mike?
Right. Well, look, anything that comes the ESPN camp, man, I don't need that, man, because they're even though I love Bradley, I've always liked them like as a fighter, and even as an analyst, as a commentator, I love that dude, but they're unbiased over there, man. Like you could tell that I don't know they're getting a bonus to kind of like support the ESPN or something. I don't know, but they're like crazy biased to the point where like even other media guys kind of bring it up. But as far as a cherry pick, I think it depends on the definition of a cherry pick, whatever definition considered to be a cherry pick. In my opinion, that's not a cherry pick. Why is it not a cherry pick? To me, a cherry pick, if you're campaign class, right, and if you're in your weight class and that's the one you're campaigning in, and you're avoiding the top guys that weight class, that's what my definition of a cherry pick is. You're moving up,
Mike. They're saying he's avoiding
high,
Benavidez,
and
they're saying Benavidez is the top guy at 168, and he avoided that fight.
Yeah, but you remember, I spoke on that the other time. That fight is still a live fight. That's still that fight is not dead, and it's not going to be dead anytime soon. So those are not the type of fights that I look at where I'm looking at the time and I'm saying, hey, like compared to, let's say, Crawford and Spence, that fair has a time limit because of Spence has been, he's going through stuff with the eye, the act, and then he's not gonna be welterweight that long. You know what I'm saying? So and I don't see Crawford going up to 154. So if that fight doesn't have welterweight, we might never see that fight again, right? But when it comes to Canelo and Benavidez, if that fight doesn't happen at 160, it could happen at 5. And Benavidez he's only going to be 25 next year, so he's not getting old or anything like that. Matter of fact, I would even take it a step further and say that it probably doesn't benefit Canelo to fight him later on. You know what I mean? Because Benavidez is only going to get better. He's not going to get worse unless something happens where he loses.
Hey, Mike, just a quick question. If Canelo puts in a rehydration clause on that Makabu fight where Makabu can't rehydrate normally, is that a cherry pick?
That's a good question, man. A bigger issue for me would be a catch, not a rehydration clause. a catch weight, if he does a catch, then I would have a problem with that, because a catch weight is basically designed to drain someone. You know, the rehydration clause, is just something that's been brought up, lately, where people are making a bigger deal than what it's just another, it's just to whine about, you know what I mean? But the rehydration clause, it's a massive exaggeration, because the IBF wouldn't even have it as a rule if it was that big of a deal, because the ideal hydration clause is to not create huge disparities in weight. It's not necessarily to drain. So, for example, if you feel that a rehydration clause is affecting the fighter in terms of being dehydrated, then that means that the fighter himself is dehydrating himself weight class. It's not the rehydration clause. It's the fighter who's choosing to stay in that weight class, cutting that many pounds, and then after that being affected by a rehydration clause, because he's basically saying, I'm not comfortable unless I rehydrate 20 to 25 pounds. So then it becomes a situation of like, how many fucking pounds do you want? If you're going to rehydrate, how many pounds do you want? So Makabu's going to have 20 pounds at least, with or without a rehydration clause, on Canelo Alvarez. So that's not my issue. My issue would be more of a catch weight, because a catch weight starts affecting training camps. It starts affecting you before you even get the fight, before you even meet the weight, and even after the weight. It can weaken you. It could zap your strength. It could zap your power. A catch weight is way, way, way worse. Matter of fact, we've seen other guys, because of the IBF rule, do rehydration clauses, and there's no issue with it. Canelo Alvarez, Cotto had a rehydration clause on Canelo Alvarez. Did you guys remember that affecting Canelo Alvarez? I don't remember that affecting Canelo Alvarez. So the problem would be a catch weight. So that would be my answer. Now, of course, if it's up to me, I wish he wouldn't that there wouldn't be any rehydration clause, just to kill any drama, excuses, and anything like that, right? But we don't know. We'll see what happens.
But Mike, a rehydration clause would hurt somebody that is tight at the weight. And if, for example, if you're somebody that rehydrates massively, like, for example, some cruiserweights are massive, or some light heavyweights are massive, like Beterbiev, we know that he missed weight when he was weighing in for Brown, right? If Canelo puts on a rehydration clause of like 10 pounds or something, that Beterbiev can only go up to 185 after the thing, that would hurt Beterbiev massively, because I'm pretty certain Beterbiev rehydrates way more than 185 pounds.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was trying to say. So it does. So why is Beterbiev in that weight class? What that's my question. Why is Beterbiev in that weight class? If a rehydration clause is going to hurt you that much without a catch weight, though, we're talking about without a catch weight. So that means that the fight would be at 170, right? So it's not going to be below that. So they're both fighters are going to make the weight limit. And you're telling me that after you make the limit, you're going to get a chance to gain 10 pounds up in the morning, and then after the morning, 5-10 pounds, whatever you want to gain. If the rehydration clause is going to affect much, then that means that what's really affecting Beterbiev is the fact that he's in class and he's draining that much to make 175. That's the real issue there.
Yeah, I agree.
Now it becomes a situation. Now it becomes a situation. I know I'm kind of getting scientific, but you get my point, right? Like, like to the point where like guys are in ways to kind of master cutting, to where like they're cutting 25, 30 fucking pounds, and they're trying to get away with that shit and having these massive weight fucking advantages in fights, man. So it kind of becomes like a lopsided thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but Mike, if you make the weight, you make the weight, mate. If you rehydrate to 25 pounds afterwards and your opponent only rehydrates by 10 pounds, well, that's his fault. But he made the weight. If you make the weight, you make the weight.
And I would say after you sign a contract,
No, but the 10 pounds,
there's no
LP, the 10 pounds is only up until the morning. You could more after the morning weigh-in.
I think that, man, that
You know what I mean?
I think,
Yep.
yeah, I think if you go to somebody else's division and you challenge them, I think that there should be no rehydration clauses or anything like that, because in a sense you're kind of handicapping them. No matter how you cut it, no matter how you spice it, and you go challenge them at their weight division, then and you have any type of bodily transformation or anything that is going to prohibit them people, you kind of handicap them a little bit. So I get what you're saying, but I just disagree with you a little bit, my man. It's all love, though.
No, of course. Like I'm not for rehydration clauses. I was just kind of trying to point out that it's very possible that a rehydration clause cannot have the effect that people assume. Because if you're not a big guy for that weight class, then what you're going to rehydrate is going to the rehydration clause. It's not going to matter. If you rehydrate 15 pounds, 15, 17 pounds, that's still possible on fight night, even with a rehydration clause. It's kind of what I brought up about Cotto and Canelo Alvarez. Cotto had a rehydration clause. I didn't know this because it was brought up later on in an interview on ESPN Deportes. They didn't bring it up, I guess, because Canelo didn't, he didn't want to like make it or anything like that. And I guess he respect Cotto, so they didn't want to divulge that type of information. But I heard that there was that Cotto had a rehydration clause on Canelo Alvarez. That rehydration clause was not going to affect Canelo Alvarez, because Canelo Alvarez was not a massive middleweight. So he was still going to, so for example, they made 160. He was going to be able to weigh 10 pounds up until the morning, which would have been, let's say, 169, 170. And that weight, he could rehydrate whatever more after that. So Canelo Alvarez was going to be 5 pounds after that, was going to be 175, 176 regardless. So the rehydration on Canelo Alvarez in that situation was not going to have an effect on him. You understand? That's why the IBF had that rule as well, because it's not designed to hurt fighters. The IBF had
But Mike, looking back, maybe it did affect Canelo, because everyone thought that Canelo was supposed to roll over Cotto, because Cotto was washed by then, like super washed, and I was actually surprised that Cotto did so well. So maybe it did affect him. It did.
And here's the other thing, Mike. Here's the other thing. You know how
I didn't see it, but we have to go base. Right.
I was gonna ask you, Mike. You know how you were saying, Beterbiev, Beterbiev, what's he do, like at light heavyweight? He could probably go up to cruiserweight. You know what? That's another big issue and a good point that you actually brought up, because the difference between light heavyweight and cruiserweight is massive. Like the light heavyweights and cruiserweights are big. And that's the other big issue that Beterbiev has. Beterbiev might be a massive light heavyweight, but he would be a really small cruiserweight. And this is the issue that I've had with the weight classes, is that I think there should be a weight class in between, because I know there's so many weight classes as it is, but the jump from light heavyweight to cruiserweight is massive. And there's certain guys like Beterbiev who struggle to make light heavy, but they can't make cruiser, but the cruiserweight's too big.
Because cruiserweight go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. No, go for it, Steven, go for it.
No, I was just gonna say cruiserweight is really a stone's throw from the heavyweight division.
Right.
Exactly.
No. It's because remember we had a comment about this months ago, and I was bringing up that I didn't like. I was saying that weight classes are not like an exact science. They don't fit every fighter. They just don't. There's a lot of guys that are in between guys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So sometimes the matchups that we want to see are by the limits of these weight classes. Compared to the welterweight division, for example, in boxing compared to the UFC, they're different. It's a different weight. So I think this kind of affects search-ups, and this is one of the reasons why some probably prevents guys from trying to move up in weight and trying to do different things. So it's just a tough one, man. It's a tough one because in a way I want to see the fights. And you kind of have to make, you know what? Would I rather see that fight with or without a catch weight, or not, or just not see it at all, right? Like, or would I rather see the fight with a rehydration clause or not see it at all? Most of the times, I rather see the be made with the catch weight or with a rehydration clause than not see the fight at all. Now, situation where I know that this dude is gonna be a fucking cadaver, going to be close to 100%, then it doesn't make no sense to fight like that. I don't think every situation, especially not with a rehydration clause, a catch weight is brutal because, like I said, it could during your training camp, because then you start focusing on trying to make the limit, which is going to be lower most of the time, right? It's going to be either a pound lower or 2 pounds, so it affects your training camp, because you're focused on making the weight, and it affects you during the fight after the weigh-in.
Hey, Mike.
Different components that go into a catch.
Hey, Mike, just kidding.
But
around.
James Deere.
Hey, Mike, James Deere is giving you a bit of slack here on the comments. But I think it's just joking around.
James Deere, look, man. James Deere, bro. I've read some of his comments on some videos. That dude says a lot of racist stuff, man. I'm not even gonna pay attention to that guy, man. I'm not even gonna pay attention.
He knows his boxing, though, dude. He does know his boxing. I have gone through back and forth with him, though. He does know his boxing, though.
Man, I got a love hate with old James, man. Well, you know, when I first started coming on, James did used to give me the business, but you know what? I grown to like him, man. Shout out to James Deere.
He's always here, man.
Yeah,
so
James Deere is he's a good dude, man. He's a good dude. I need to get him on one day, man.
His comments, sometimes when he replies to me, it's a little like out there. And I think
I think James believes sometimes, like, you know, like, for example, like, we give Floyd a lot of stick, but Canelo is kind of like double standards. Like, Canelo gets a lot of passes and Floyd gets a lot of stick. I think Steven's mentioned this before as well, that, you know, like, we got to be consistent. You know what I mean? We can't be inconsistent. And James thinks that we're a bit inconsistent.
Yeah, but Imran, Canelo has earned the right to cherry pick here and there because, you know, he's gone through the gauntlet. Whereas Mayweather, from 140 to 154, let's face it, he cherry picked a lot of those fights, and that's why I can't give him a pass on some of those fights, like the one Manuel Marquez one where he missed weight and he just paid Marquez, I don't know, a couple of $1 million for every pound that he was over. So, and not only that, dude, Marquez came up from 135. He's not really a welterweight. Like, so it's like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, you know, so I can't give him a pass.
What it is? You know what it is, Lil Penny? You know what it is? Yeah. Every person has their own perspective. So if someone's talking to me and they're talking to me and they're saying that I'm, you know, they're disagreeing with my opinion, I want them to counter me specifically. I said specifically, right? Because I've never that I'm for catch weights, against for rehydration clauses or anything like that. So I use the same standards with everybody. I'm just explaining the differences between this situation compared to situation. So I a lot of times when we have these conversations, they make the assumptions and they assume that we all think that we all feel the same, or that we're all defending Canelo Alvarez, but we're not the exact same Canelo Alvarez. We're not all saying the exact same thing. So if someone wants to debate me, then debate what I said specifically. You know what I mean? Don't put me in a group. So I don't know what what's his name again?
James.
What's his name?
James did.
James. Yeah. What James is what's his issue with me? If I don't know what I said that he's trying to put me on the spot, but I haven't said anything crazy. I haven't given any Canelo passes for this or any passes for that. My main issue with Floyd Mayweather is his hypocrisy, not the things that he did, because I'm going to rate a fighter based on what he chooses to do. So if Floyd Mayweather decides to cherry here, catch weight here, do here, I'm not going to necessarily for it. I'm just going to rate his career based off of that, right? And that's it. Like so if I'm fighters, I'm going to say this guy. I'm going to rank this.
I'll kill him though, man.
This and that.
Hey, Mike, check it out, man. I'll kill him though because here's the thing, man. Right. Here's the thing about it, man. Okay, Mayweather, when you do stuff like that, when you cherry pick and when you make moves for yourself, and this go for Canelo too. Y'all know me. Y'all know how I feel about it. I think you rob people, man. You rob people, man. That's stealing. That's stealing. You, as long as, and I don't subscribe to the notion that this person has worked his way up to circumvent a certain fighter or to avoid or to do this, that, and third. As long as you boxing, man. As long as you boxing, you got to give it your all. Now, if you retire and you go into doing the Jake Paul exhibition route, then that's fine because you ain't no pro boxer no more. But you'll never earn the right to do this, that, and third. I don't know who came up with that, man. That's wax sauce, man. I don't like that, man.
I don't agree with that either.
Mark, here's a guy.
Yeah,
Mark
I don't agree with that.
Mark Egan said, I was high as kite last night when Woodley got slept. I literally fell out my chair laughing. My boy tried to slam, elbow, and knee Jake Paul. Guys,
Woodley should never took that fight, man. You know what I'm saying? We seen that for the first fight. We seen it was a mismatch. And Jake Paul has dedicated himself to the sport of boxing. And like I said earlier today, it's gonna be a time where we're gonna say we're gonna have to say the Paul brothers with the business, and we're gonna have to give them that consideration because they proven now once they go up and start fighting real boxers, but I expected that. I expected time and shame on Tyrone Woodley for taking that fight. You can't beat him. You couldn't beat him the first time. It's the same thing with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. That's why I do salute Deontay Wilder because he took that fight, but there was no way he was going to beat Tyson. It was a mismatch. The first fight was a mismatch.
But I'll say this: you can't blame him for taking the fight because UFC doesn't really pay their average fighter, right? So like, if it's a big payday, that's going to change his life.
I don't want to take no outfit like that and humiliate myself for a buck. Tyrone, he could do 1,000 other things. Go invest money in something else.
He's never got a payday like this, and he got a free rollie.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's where he lost the fight. When I saw that and he softened him up, even though I already knew that Paul was going to win anyway because he had 8 weeks training camp versus a 2-week training camp. When I saw that and he softened up a little bit and he tried to shake his hand, I was thinking, man, dude, you're gone, man. That's a Manny Pacquiao strategy that Manny used to do. He used to
No, I think Manny was genuinely nice.
That's like what Caleb Plant did that with Canelo. Caleb Plant ended up talking about, am I really that? Do you really think I'm? Man, Canelo trying to put clean your clock, man.
Yo, that was so.
What you doing in there? You gonna
I've ever seen in that was the cringiest thing I've ever seen in a boxer. He's like, hey, am I pretty good, man? Like how's my day?
I saw that.
And Canelo sitting there looking like you a fool. You gonna sit out or you gonna box? Because I'm finna clean your clock. I'm finna murk you. And that's what he did, man.
I think the worst thing he said was like, I respect your skills after talking all that shit he did. He's like, Cotto made you this. Cotto's brother did you this. And then
It's
now
like
he's
a
like,
pump.
and then he's like 4 rounds. He's like, oh, I really respect your skills.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
you respect mine, sir? Like come on,
Yeah.
bro. Just like
Mike,
No,
what
I
do
like
you make
it.
of Jake Paul?
Okay, before I just wanted to make
I
this
don't know,
point
man.
before
I don't know anything
before
about the guy.
yeah.
You know what? Did you not see the knockout? You must have seen the knockout.
Yeah, I saw it on Twitter. I saw the I didn't see the fight though. I don't know anything about his background or anything like that. So I have no idea. But I mean, these are
Do you
these
think
are
it's
kind
good
of
or
like
bad
amateur
for boxing,
guys.
though? Do you think it's good or bad for boxing?
I'm indifferent about it, bro. I think I don't think it's good or bad. It's just they're just doing their thing and they're making money and if you know they're able to make money, if people want to watch them, good for them. You know what I mean? I just don't put them in the same group as like professional boxers. You know,
Right, fair
they're
enough.
doing their
Yeah,
thing
fair
and that's cool.
Yeah, but Mike,
I
he
could
might
dig
get
it,
there
Mike.
eventually, though. Mike, he might get
What's
there
up, LP?
eventually. Mike, he might get there
Nah,
eventually.
I don't think so, man. I don't
Because
think
if you
so,
look,
bro.
no, Mike, the argument for him, like he's always reiterated this, that when guys like Canelo and like say Pacquiao, when they fought their first 6 fights, they're not the same caliber as what he's fighting. He's fighting like really.
No, he's fighting basketball players and like
But
football
no,
players.
yeah. Look, he's
No,
LP.
but
Look,
look,
number
is
one, I haven't seen the fights, but of course, like you know, he's so popular. He's got like I don't know how many fucking followers that you're gonna read what comes out on Twitter. And I've seen the dudes that he fought. He's fighting guys who've never boxed before. He's fighting athletes from other sports, and he fought an MMA fighter. And anybody that watches MMA, I've been watching MMA since fucking UFC 1. Anybody that watches MMA knows that their boxing is overrated. Their boxing is overrated
It's
because
horrendous.
they're mixed martial artists. They're not specialists.
Yeah.
Boxing is a specialty. They boxers box since they're fucking 5 years old, 6, 7, 8, and they do the same shit over and over and over and over. So you might not notice this when you're watching a fight because they move the same way, they throw punches and knock guys out. But if you put them in there with an elite level boxer, the elite level boxer is going to pick out, he's going to do feints, the timing is going to be different, the distance is going to be different. They're going to make these dudes look really, 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 really bad. The problem is we haven't seen the dude. Right, the stamina
of a boxer. The stamina of a boxer.
The stamina,
Steven,
durability,
I'm sorry about that, y'all.
But Steven, he's only 23.
You're right.
Steven, he's only 23 years old. He can still get better. He's only 23 years old. He can get better.
But LP, this is what's going to happen to him.
Like I said,
let's say he fights a professional boxer. Let's say he fights a professional boxer, a decent one, a solid one, right?
Yeah.
There's a good chance that boxer is probably going to beat him. Not just beat him, but he might even knock his ass out. If he knocks his ass out cold, it doesn't matter if he's 23. He's going to retire after that. It's over.
Yeah, but I'm not saying now.
What do you fight at? What's his weight class? What do you fight then?
180, like 180.
He's a cruiserweight, man. He's a cruiserweight.
Yeah, he's gonna get his ass.
Yeah, he ain't gonna survive in the cruiserweight division.
He's gonna get a. That's another thing people don't bring up.
No, but I don't know.
He has
huge.
huge.
He's talking about one day I'm gonna fight Canelo, but he can't even make that weight. I don't even like the guy's massive. The guy, obviously, the talk about Canelo and stuff, that's just rubbish. But I'm just saying, like, if he's talking about eventually what weight he's gonna fight, because he can't keep doing fights like this. He's gonna, if he wants to fight a pro boxer, he's gonna have to fight at a weight class, right? And the weight classes that he operates, those guys up there hit really hard.
Oh, big time.
Or maybe he'll do an exhibition. You know? Maybe
I don't know, man. I think I agree with Mike on this. I think he's just gonna keep doing exhibitions and stuff. A guy like
Mukabu annihilates him. A guy like Mukabu.
Oh yeah. That wouldn't even be a fight. Like, I think lesser guys than Mukabu would beat him.
This is what I sense from him, though. I sense that he rocks, man. He's been, I think that this is really what he wants. He wants to be taken seriously.
Yes, I get that too. Hey, Imran, can you get I to say something? Because I think he's been waiting for a while.
Who? Oh, I only talk boxing. What's going on?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you,
Yeah,
man.
man.
Sorry about that. I didn't even know you were there.
No,
Yeah,
it's all
man.
right. I was just listening to you guys. Nah,
What's
no,
good, man?
I just had a little opinion on the Canelo what do you call it? Cherry picking, but
Go
I'll
ahead,
talk
man. Go
about it
ahead. Give your
when we
take.
get to it.
Give your take. Let us know.
No, you know how a lot of people say, well, compare it a lot to like when Roy Jones fought John Ruiz, you know.
Hmm.
Mainly what people say is that Canelo's not fighting like a Bradis, or if Usyk went down on a Usyk.
Hmm.
Um, but you know, other boxers haven't moved up and didn't fight the best guy at the weight division. The one I think about the most is when Pernell Whitaker went up. He fought at Vasquez instead of fighting Terry Norris. Terry Norris was the guy at welterweight.
Yes.
Hmm.
So you know,
Terrible
I
Terry
just
Lewis.
wanted to point that out. You know,
But he did
Yeah,
fight.
yeah.
Man,
Everybody
Oscar.
has
how
a
What
good
point.
did he fight
was
Oscar?
Terry Norris?
Terry Norris was a great fighter.
Yeah.
He
Underrated.
was a
Yeah,
gangster
he was a
boy. He was a
beast.
killer boy.
Terrible Terry
Yeah.
Norris. I remember him. He was a proper. He was a great. It's sad to see him now, though.
Abel Sanchez had him, I
Yeah.
think, right? Abel
Yeah,
Sanchez.
Sanchez. Yeah. It's sad though. I saw an interview
I
from
think you
Terry
talking about
Norris not long
I think
ago,
you
and
talking about Mildred Taylor. That's what you talking about, Imran.
no, I'm talking about Terry Norris, bro. He can barely speak now.
Yeah, Mildred
Right.
Taylor was a beast too.
Yeah. Sad, man.
But you know, with Pernell Whitaker, he did fight a lot of the best fighters at 147, even though he wasn't really a welterweight. He was more like a
yeah.
super heavyweight.
What I
Yeah.
was saying is that when he
Yeah, what I is basically saying, man, is that everybody does that, man. That's just the reality. Like, who are we kidding, man? Come on, dude.
Yeah.
Name one fighter that doesn't do that. Especially if we're going based on the definition of like the definition of the majority of people out there, casuals who throw that shit out all the time. Like, you know, you a lot of people, you know, Steven loves Errol Spence. I like Errol Spence too. We both Errol Spence fans. There's fights that I pick out his resume that would be considered cherry picks too. You know, if we go
Mikey
based on the
Garcia.
definition, Mikey Garcia would be
Like-
considered a cherry pick. So
I would
it's
also like
it
to
happens.
Not
mention
really. If Mikey's calling him out, it's not a cherry pick. If Mikey's the
Yeah.
one calling Spence out, then it's different.
No, man, you can't. That's still, even if Mikey's calling him out, still a cherry pick. Some guy
Everyone
from two
does
weight
that,
classes
man.
below you calls you out. That's a cherry pick, man. I
Yeah,
think.
because
I
Anyway.
everyone
think-
calls
I also wanted to mention real quick, and I'll shut up.
Yeah,
Just
go on.
when it comes to Canelo, I know I sound like a Canelo fanboy. I'm not trying to sound like it. I'm just trying to just facts, not opinions. So Canelo going to not light heavyweight, cruiserweight is a bigger jump. Those two weight classes, that 2 weight class jump is more. How do you say it? There's more pounds in the middle that I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but it's a bigger jump than, let's say, if you're
147 to
I don't know, a
150.
lightweight and to a welterweight.
Yeah.
You know, you get what I'm saying? So that I have to give Canelo props for that too, because that's
Yeah,
like a way
100%.
bigger 2 weight jump than, you know, other weight classes.
Yeah, like there
It's more
was a
dangerous.
report, there was a tweet that I saw the other day, and of course, like I don't want to compare them. I don't want to, you know, anybody to get all butthurt because there's a lot of, you know, a lot of things that we could nitpick on, right? But if Canelo, you know, fights Mukabu, and we go based on where Canelo started, I remember the tweet was something about, you know, Canelo would be moving up so many pounds. I forgot how many pounds it was. That it would be even more pounds than what Manny Pacquiao did. So imagine being an 8th division champion in Manny Pacquiao, right? Which he gets a lot of credit for. Think about the amount of pounds that Canelo was going from 154 all the way to cruiserweight, which would Manny Pacquiao. That's not something that everybody can do. You know, whether it's a cherry pick or not, that's not something that everybody does. If that was easy, a lot of people would do it.
Also, Pacquiao isn't an 8th division champ. That's just the FYI.
But Mike and I, the big difference is when Pacquiao started at 112, he won the lineal champion at 112, like the man who beat the man who beat the man, right? Whereas when Canelo started at 147, he could hardly even beat Abner Cotto. And Abner Cotto was rated like
No,
number
it was
30 in the
154.
welterweight division.
It wasn't from 147 LP. It was I was saying from 154 to cruiserweight.
Oh, 154. Okay, well that's different. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, man, because you
From
know, because
154
Canelo started at 147 from memory.
Right. He started at
Yeah,
147, but he
Pacquiao-
didn't the majority of the 147 career for Canelo was kind of developmental. It wasn't really him facing the elite level guys. It was more so like they were to kind of develop his craft and stuff like that, kind of like if it was his amateur career in a sense, you know what I mean? Because he was a teenager.
Yeah,
So
but it's the same as Manny Pacquiao, because Manny didn't last at 112 either. In fact, in his second defense of his 112 belt, he didn't make weight. And then after that, he actually went all the way from 112 to 122, right? So it's the same thing. But the big difference is Canelo, not only that he didn't win a belt at 147, he could hardly beat a person. Abner Cotto was rated number 30 at welterweight. You know what I mean? Whereas Pacquiao beat the guy who was the man at 112, like, you know, the lineal WBC champ. So I just want to put it out there, like, because, you know, I know people like to compare Canelo with Manny Pacquiao, and I like that, but man, he's got a long way to go before we start comparing him to Manny Pacquiao.
And Manny Pacquiao.
I'm not. Like I said, I'm not even comparing them.
Yeah, I know, Mike. I know what you mean, but I wasn't referring to. I was referring to boxing fans, you know, who like to compare it. Yeah, sorry, Steve.
No, I was saying, and Pac-Man was going up and fighting. You know what I'm saying? When he went up, he was fighting gangsters. He was fighting killers. You know what I'm saying? He went fight macabres. You know, I know it seems like I'm bitter over that, but I mean, I feel like Tim Bradley. I don't know nothing about the macabre. You know what I'm saying? I feel like him, man. Like, hopefully they can iron it out, man. And who knows? It may not. You know, it may end up working out to where, you know, we see the fight, we see a good fight or whatever. But I just got the feeling that Canelo may handle business with Macabre, whoever he is.
But hey, remember,
whatever
Steven,
his name is. Yes, sir.
Let's not forget this though. You know, an LP too, right?
Yep.
This is not a knock. Again, this is not a knock. It's just a point. I'm just making a point that, you know, this happens with a lot of boxers. Pacquiao did face Kobe at a catch weight. Margarito at a catch weight.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So it's not like Manny Pacquiao also didn't, you know, maneuver or did his thing and stuff like that. So, you know, it's not like, that's kind of my point. And that's the reason why I don't try to make too big of a deal catch weights, because I know that it happened in history. Henry Armstrong had catch weights. Whitaker had a catch weight. You know,
Ray Leonard too.
It happens. Ray Leonard had a catch weight. Ray Leonard became a high division champion, not fighting the best guys either, right? Not the main guy in the top weight classes. Tommy Hearns, same thing. You know, like, so. This isn't new.
But Mike, the reason why no one said anything at that time about those catchweights for Pacquiao is because he earned the right to do that. Because, you know, he as I was saying before, he went through the gauntlet, right? And same thing with Canelo too. And you know, I agree with 99% of the time that what Steven says, but I disagree with you on this 1%, which is the Canelo one. I think Canelo has earned the right to. I don't even think that it's a cherry pick until he puts in a catch weight, this Macabre fight. I think, you know, I'm gonna give him a pass on that Macabre fight. Like, you know, if everyone thinks it's a cherry pick, okay, then so be it. But I'm gonna give him a pass because of what he's done in the past.
But here's the thing, Steven's right as well. Steven says it's not about giving somebody a pass. If you're boxing, you're boxing, you know what I mean? Once you retire, then you can do all of that. So Steven made a good point there, a little penny as well, that you don't get passes when you're boxing. When you're legitimately boxing, you've got to box and you've got to go by the rules and stuff. So there's no such thing as passes and stuff. What do you say, Steven?
Yeah, man. I mean, shoot, man. I mean, while you boxing, man, you bust your gun, You bust your gun every day, all day. When you retire, that's when you take a day off. You say, have a nice day. I'm gonna take a day off. I'm gonna do what I want to do. I'm gonna enjoy myself. Y'all know it. Like, you know what I'm saying? For everybody who got a job, when you go to your job, you don't go to your job and say, okay, well, I want to do this task right here. I want to drive the forklift, whatever you might do. No, you do the job. You know what I'm saying? And when you off of work and on Saturdays, that's when you get on Saturdays and Sundays. That's when you get on YouTube and you watch the good old live from Iran. You know what I'm saying? Because you let your hair down then. You know what I'm saying? But while you boxing, you box.
But Steven,
I'm going to counter that real quick. I feel like in
ahead.
boxing, if a fighter has tough fights after tough fights, it messes up their longevity in the sport, right? Like we all know, like my favorite fighter of all time is Muhammad Ali. He's like a hero of mine. Like he had tough fights after tough fights after tough fights. Yeah. He did not take an easy fight at all. He went he had a hiatus for 2 years because of governmental issues and his stance. Like he came back, tough fight. And like we all know, the boxers are trying to like make the most money they can. So like like there are fighters.
That's
Sean Porter.
That's why I don't like to compare.
Yeah. Sorry.
What the point that you're making is with that. That's why I don't like to compare fighters.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
But Mike, boxing is one of those sports where you can compare because it's so rich in history. Like kind of like with basketball. Like when you go to a barbershop, usually guys usually talk about boxing and basketball. It's because you can compare the eras, and it's the only sport.
Where are you from?
And that's the only sport that you really, because you can't do that in football. Ice hockey. No one wants to talk about ice hockey. You know what I mean?
But it's easier, LP. It's easier. It's easier to compare eras when you have structure. When you have a league and everybody goes through a similar route and there's playoffs or something like that, or even like in the UFC, where you can't say I don't want to fight this guy right now. I might fight him later on. You have to take the fight. It is what it is. In boxing, it's a fucking disaster. Everything is a mess. Do whatever the hell you want, whether you're a cash cow or even if you're a bums cherry pick. They just cherry pick other bums and we don't know about it, but they also make decisions based on what benefits them. So the way boxing is ran is the problem because it allows boxers to do whatever they want. So when you don't have structure, then it becomes even harder to compare eras and compare fighters because everybody does whatever they want. So Muhammad Ali is a good example where like Muhammad Ali was making tough choices that he didn't have to make. He didn't have to make those choices, but he made them.
And that's why he's the most important fighter.
That's why I always say that boxing needs a reformation. It needs a restructuring. It needs to be destroyed and rebuilt again, totally new, because it's a lot of, boxing is like the Wild Wild West. You got dudes doing anything and anything they want to, everything they want to, without any type of critiquing or any type of fallback. And that's why we had these guys. See, you know what? If boxing was structured and you had some organization in it, we wouldn't be talking about who Mayweather avoided and this, that, and third.
Steven,
Yes,
the main problem is boxing has been corrupt.
Hold on.
Go
for it.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know what happened. Sorry, but the main problem with boxing has from day one, it's been corruption. It's always had. If it's not one issue, if it's not racism, it's the mob. If it's not the mob, it's like the judges are bought. If it's not that, there's so many belts now. And not even that there's so many belts now. There's so many TV, not TV channels. What are it called? Like there's DAZN. There's like so many platforms, and now each platform has its own like stable. So like
that's not what that. I think that's what lures us to boxing, because it is the wild west. Like if it was MMA per se and it's structured, maybe we wouldn't like it so much. Like I'm not talking about.
Yeah, personally, I like boxing because of the characters in it. You know, like how like different
Yeah.
personalities, like from Maidana, the humble background, to the, you know, the like Floyd Mayweather's, like, or like, you know, like the super arrogant, like stuff like that,
Yeah,
and like
because if boxing was structured right and it had like a league per se where there's a president and an administrator like the NBA per se, Floyd wouldn't have been allowed to say all those things that he wanted to say. That brings boxing into the arenas. He'd get suspended and all that kind of stuff. Like it has to be
no, I feel
political.
like,
Right.
you know, even
He
in
would
the
have been
UFC,
banned.
there's a league, and then there's a but there's a guy who called
Yeah.
another fighter a terrorist. Like he's saying racist shit. Like things still would have happened, and people who generate a lot of money, like Conor McGregor, he can do whatever the f he wants, and he'll still get title shot. He like
Yeah.
literally make a woman blind.
The problem with boxing is like what Max Kellerman says. Boxing is it's not a company. It's like it's independent businesses. So say for example they made a league, right? Where
Yeah.
say for example the WBA, WBO, and you know those alphabet belts. Say they formed one league, right?
But I'm saying
Someone
there
who
still will
doesn't-
be problems, even if there was
Yeah,
one
someone who
single
doesn't
league.
agree, like Cambosos can do his own thing in Australia, and then he'll just get one of the boxers from that league come into him, and then they'll fight each other, and then that guy can come back. So it won't work because boxing has always been like the wild west, and it will always be that way. Like it will
Yeah,
never be like UFC. So the fact, you know, this talk of like, because I've heard this man in the early 2000s.
and you know, even with the UFCs, there's other MMA organizations that never fight with the UFC.
Yeah, Bellator, right?
So yeah, Bellator and like Spartan, whatever, like Spartans MMA. I don't know what's called, but I'm just saying, if there was one league in boxing, other people will, like, because everyone's money hungry, they'll make other leagues, and those other two leagues will never fight each other. You know what I mean? Just like with UFC never fights with Bellator fighters. I'm saying the problems will always arise. There's never going to be a perfect solution. So
I think one solution is to have one network, like the old days with HBO and Showtime.
That's never gonna happen. That's never gonna happen because like people already have too much money and they're making too much money.
But you know, back then when we had HBO, and then if HBO can do it, then Showtime would do it, right? Those little like
you can keep on going back and back and to when there was only one champion belt. Like, you know, maybe that will solve all the problems. But like that's what I'm saying. If you only have one championship belt, other people will have more, like they'll make their own organizations, own leagues. This is never ending.
I don't have a problem with the way boxing is, because like I said, it's still fun and we still get to watch the fights. I just want, or at least I believe, that people should acknowledge the fact that this causes problems when it comes to ranking fighters all time. You know, because it becomes a situation where like it's almost like I feel like we're lying to ourselves. You know what I mean? Like saying like, oh, this guy's better than this guy. Like, come on, dude, they take the same route though. They didn't make the same choices.
Yeah, but Mike, in the barbershops, people love to compare like Jack Dempsey versus, say, if he fought Joe Louis. Like, you know, that's what makes boxing a great conversation. And that's the reason why we're all here, is because we can do that. Like you can't do that to any other sports. Like no one talks about you know, that sprinter in the Berlin Games versus, like, say, Usain Bolt.
Right.
No one's interested in that crap. Like, you know what I mean?
I feel like people who like
that's great.
Whereas we can say, what about Willie Pep, like in the 30s versus, say, someone like Manny Pacquiao, you know, at the featherweight division. Like, you know, people sometimes, like historians like us, like, you know, we all know our boxing here. We love to compare that, and then boxing. Yeah, go on.
I'm about to get off, man. Before I leave, yeah, man. Here's the thing, man. All right, so somebody was saying that if you formulated a league and then another league will pop up.
Yeah, that was E.
But you got, but okay, yeah. So I was just saying that, you know, those leagues. There's only one NBA. There's only one NFL. You got other leagues, but nobody pays attention to the big three. They pay attention to the actual league. Like Bellator, ain't nobody really checking for Bellator. You know, everybody checking for the UFC. So we need our own. If they could do it, we could do it. You know what I'm talking about? But I'm about to go, man. Peace to everybody. I love the conversation. Everybody take it easy.
See you, Steve.
Take care, Stephen.
But the
See you
problem
soon.
with that is it only takes one champion to get out of that league. Say Kambosos, I'll give you an example. Kambosos, right? He's got all the belts. Say he doesn't want to join that league. He wants to do his own thing. So he'll ask one of those guys, like he'll ask Haney, hey, Haney, I'll offer you 10 million to come to Australia and fight me. Of course, he's not going to turn that down. He's going to fight him. So he's going to get out of that league, fight Kambosos, and then when he's over, then go back to that. So it won't work. And that's the reason why it has never worked. And boxing will always be a wild, wild west. That's the reason why Las Vegas loves boxing, because it's like a sin that you can commit and you can get away with it. That's the aura of boxing, and it's always been that way. And that's why it will never change. And the people at the top, they won't let that change.
It's changing though, LP. It is changing though, bro.
Yeah, different
no,
networks.
I mean, maybe not from that perspective, but it's changing in terms of the choices and the way fighters.
Guys,
I mean, fighters don't fight.
Before anyone says anything else,
anymore.
I'm gonna
Andre Ward retired.
You guys all have a great night.
All right, take care, bro.
There you go, Mike.
Oh, he left.
Go on, Mike.
No, I'm saying that boxing is changing. You look at a guy like Andre Ward, for example. He retired. He didn't even have 40 fights. He had 32 fights or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're not. The choices that they're making, I think, are more with attention to health, a lot more than it was back in the day. So
yeah, I agree with that.
So the fights that we wanted to see that we want to see, or they're not happening. Like, for example, I mean, look what's happening with Errol, Spence, and Crawford. That's just horrible. That's horrible because they've been in the same weight class for years.
Hey, Mike, maybe that's the reason why sometimes we don't see the fights that we want to see, because they're not fighting as often, because they're more conscious about their health. Like, they don't want to fight 8 times a year like what Sugar Ray Robinson did in the 40s. They may only want to fight 2 times a year, because they know, they're probably spoken to a neurologist, and they're probably saying, man, you can't fight 8-10 times a year like what Tyson used to do. I think there was a stat that Tyson fought 10 times in 1 year. So maybe that's the reason why. It's
smart, right? Wouldn't you agree? I think that's the smartest thing. But there's a problem with that. Being smarter doesn't necessarily mean that your legacy is going to enhance, or that your legacy is gonna be able to match up with fighters of the past. So when we talk about this guy's not facing Hall of Famers, this guy's not facing this. What Hall of Famers? If you're not fighting, if you only have 30 fights, if you only have 20 fights, and you're not fighting the best guys around you, how are you going to be in Hall of Fame?
Yeah, Mike. That's the problem. That's the problem, because Canelo's predecessors, like say Tommy Hearns at 154, he fought a lot of he fought a lot of Hall of Famers, and he was in an era where you have to fight the best of the best, and you fight 10 times a year, right? Whereas Canelo, he doesn't have that luxury, because he can only fight twice a year. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's
let me give you guys a quick example. And this is not I'm not comparing greatness, all right? I'm just comparing the choices or the era. I remember Chavez Sr., when I think it was around 93, around there, something like that. He was still undefeated. And he was already getting to 90 wins, right? Undefeated. And in a span of 1 year, he fought 7 times, and he was already, I think, 31. And for Chavez, for people who follow his career, at that point, he was already starting to decline. You could tell that he was already, there was a lot of wear and tear in his career. But he still fought in a span of 1 year 7 times, and in those 7 times, he fought Camacho, who was a Hall of Famer, Greg Hagen, who was a Hall of Famer, and moved up to fight Pernell Whitaker, who was probably the best fighter at that point, pound for pound, in the world. Now, you tell me, you think that Floyd Mayweather done something like that? undefeated.
Maybe
Undefeated.
in his earlier days. Maybe in his earlier days, the 130, 135 version.
I don't know. Maybe
But
not.
definitely not. But definitely not the 140, 147, 154 version. No way. He wouldn't even take that
exactly.
risk.
So my point is that if Chavez maneuvered the way the boxing is today, right? He probably would have retired undefeated too. You know,
that's true.
So that's my point. Like when you give fighters these choices, I tend to look at those things, and if a fighter goes out there and challenges himself, whether he loses or not, I tend to respect that than other fighters who kind of like, are more conservative.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes a loss is a win. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I can't give an example at the moment, but sometimes when a guy loses, they actually win. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I get you.
I wanted to say something about that because when judging, it comes to judges, there's no set rules on how to judge a fight. So it's just on preference, practically, when someone judges a fight. So let's say you like more of a out pointer kind of boxing, slick, or more of a come forward pushing, aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you look for in fights, then you're gonna obviously favor that kind of performance on a fighter. So that's why there are some cards. Right. Don't get me wrong. Maybe there are some bot judges. I don't know, but I do know that some cards that like greatly different from one another it's not because they're on going by the same rules, because there are no rules when it comes to judging in boxing. It's just how you look at it. So that's a big problem.
Subjective. Very subjective. Very subjective.
But usually in Las Vegas, they're like people who are come forward fighters, like Pacquiao. That, like, historically, you know what I mean? There's a few odd, like,
overall,
anomalies, like
overall, LP,
like,
I think overall.
Yeah, but
I
also
agree,
Las
LP,
Vegas,
overall,
Mike. Like,
I think that in the history of boxing.
Yep. But historically, Mike, Las Vegas has Las Vegas judges have always like come forward fighters. They tend to give, like, if it's a 50-50 round, they tend to give the offensive fighter the nod, the 10-9 round. You know what I mean? Like, I've noticed that. Like, I can't prove it, obviously,
you're right.
But
You're right. I've seen interviews. I've seen interviews with judges where they talk about the way they score fights. Exactly because what judges do is they try to simplify things.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean? By if the fighter is trying to do more, or he's trying, and it's a very, very close round, it just makes it easier for them to say, I'm gonna give it to this guy.
Yeah,
because they don't have the time like us. Right. And they don't have the time to go back and then look if that punch landed, did it not land, blah, blah, blah. They can't go look like we can. We could go back and watch a fight 2, 3, 4 times and then cards. So they have to simplify things, and that's why they do those things.
Isn't there like how to judge a round? Isn't there like 3 types? It's like effective aggression, ring generalship, and defense, right? Isn't that the 3? Or is it 4? What's the other one?
4. Effective aggression, ring generalship, clean punches, and defense.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, that's what, dude. That's why I don't criticize judges, man, because they've got a hard job as it is.
Oh, super hard, man.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The judging is hard, man, but judges get a lot of
what
stick
you
as
think,
well. But
Imran?
sometimes,
you gotta step in, Imran. What's up?
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, that the thing is with judges, sometimes its scoring is terrible.
Right.
When the judges like, you see a fight and you're like, you see a guy win, and the judges just see it completely different to you. Like, most of the public see it a certain way, and the judge just has it completely different to what most of the public see it.
But Imran, sometimes the public judges a fight like overall. They don't do it on a round by round basis. Like, for example, if one guy like in the 12th round like nearly KOs the guy and is about to go down, but he gets up and it's 10-8 round, but he loses all the 11 fights, some people might think, oh my God, that guy should have won. You know what I mean? Because you know what I mean?
Yeah, but those are people, LP, that don't really have a lot of knowledge about boxing. The ones that have knowledge like we do, we know that, you know, judging is done by round.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like I said, I'm talking about the ones that we consider big robberies and stuff.
Oh,
like,
okay.
how the hell can a Canelo Golovkin first fight be scored 118, 110 in Canelo's favor? Like, there's just no way.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, some judging is terrible. And you've got to, is it corruption? Is it just incompetency? What is it, you know?
It's style. I think it's style, Imran. Unless we know for certain that there's like, you know, some corruption. I think it's style. Like, for example, in Adelaide Bird's case, she's been known to score fights in a more more amateurish way where it's like hit, not get hit. And that's why she had that lopsided score for Canelo Alvarez, because she looked at it as like Canelo displayed the better defense and he landed the better punches. But the majority of people were looking Triple G as more like he was a more active guy. He threw more punches. He was kind of making the fight. So that's why her scorecard was way off. But that's the reason why I kind of score fights in two different ways. Like, I go on a round by round basis, right? Like a judge. But I also like to look at the fight as a whole. And then I kind of gauge and say, you know what? Who deserved to win this fight? So to give you guys an example, like let's say there's a fight and I scored it on paper 6-6, right? So it's a draw. Just an example. But let's say one of the fighters did more damage in his 6 rounds, or the 6 rounds that he won. Then, even though it's a draw on paper, I might still look at the fight and think, you know what? I think this guy got the best of this guy, even though on paper it might have been a draw. And that's how subjective boxing can be. You understand what I mean? Like the score can't tell the truth, the whole story of the fight.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in real quick on that part. I like to use the Meldrick Taylor versus Chavez fight, because if you look at it, Meldrick Taylor was outboxing Chavez. But if you look at the end of the fight, who won the fight?
Right.
Like, Meldrick Taylor came out messed up. Chavez didn't have a scratch on him.
Right. That's what's tough. Exactly. That's what's tough, because one guy might be winning on points, but the other dude's doing more damage. So then you ask yourself, who would I rather be? I mean, like, I'm not sure. Like,
hey, Mike, you know Adelaide Bird, she was on that. You know what you're saying with the Mayweather Canelo, where I think she had Canelo. I think she had it as Canelo to win, right? She also had Bradley as a win in their first fight as well. So Adelaide Bird, they got to watch out for her.
Yeah.
I mean, that was definitely a lopsided scorecard.
They were killing her, but she made I don't know if you guys saw a video. She made a video where she basically came out and said, "Hey, this is how I scored the fight," and she kind of explained it. I didn't agree with her, obviously, but she kind of came out and said, "Look, this is what I saw. This is how I score fights, and that's just what it is. You know, whether people agree with me or not." So I kind of a little bit of credit that she kind of came out and showed her face and kind of like tried to explain what she did. But yeah, she just has a style of scoring fights that are not. It's not like how the majority of judges score fights.
Yeah,
sir, can I get you to touch on something real quick? LP, sorry, but I don't mean to cut you off, but I love what you just said just now. I touched on it yesterday. My reception was relatively warm. I appreciate you guys in the comments too. But it isn't always common knowledge to people that aren't Mexican boxing fans, Mexican enthusiasts. I'm a Mexican. Is there anybody else that can touch on that? What the philosophy is with the Mexican style? Again, I was telling people yesterday, it's not necessarily an advantage to fight like a Mexican. I'm a Mexican, you know what I mean? But the reality is that we're looked at a certain way. To be too slick, it's looked at in a lot of ways as if we're running. And that is, I mean, personally in my culture, that's not something that's very welcome. We bite on our mouthpiece and we go forward.
Yeah,
Can
JP,
anybody else touch on that?
Hey, JP, it's the same thing in the Philippines. If you're a Filipino dude, you can't do.
Yes, correct.
You can't
Absolutely
go
correct.
like Donaire and Pacquiao and Brian Valoria, they're all come forward fighters, and I don't know. I think it's a culture thing because in Philippines you can't get away like
It is.
Those fights that you
culture
don't
thing.
see in Philippines where it's only
You'll get booed.
Yeah, you'll get booed. Yeah, man. They'll throw popcorn and they'll throw like God knows what, like a chicken's head or something.
But
'cause, you know,
JP,
there's a lot of cockfighting in Philippines. Yeah, go.
But JP,
Go for it.
I would say that even happens here in America too. It's just that it's not the majority of the people or the Colcan African American fans and boxers who also feel like that too, who are more like like Mike Tyson was or Evander Holyfield, all for slick fighting either. Not like half and half. Everybody has opinion. It's just that countries like Mexico, maybe the Philippines, it's the majority. The majority of people feel like you have to kind of.
Yeah.
They look at boxing in a different way. I feel like people in Mexico, they appreciate more the showing, like the type of fight, the warrior spirit, more so whether you win or lose.
The Japanese as well. Here's a good
JP,
example.
They want to see a
Rigondeaux.
fight. They don't want to see dancing, especially how
When
they
we're
fight.
talking, just to go into sharp contrast with that. Now, we have African American fighters out here that really do bite in their mouthpiece that are well loved by the Mexican people. I can give you a couple of examples right now on the list. We got Mike Tyson. We got Roy Jones, who was actually a relatively slick fighter, but he proposed offense generally would come with defense, right? But it would be like 50-50. It wasn't 65-75% defense. We love that.
Yep.
We love Chavez the way that he bent at the hip and he was able to avoid punches as well as come forward. So it was one of those things. But in sharp contrast, you got West African boxers, you got people like that fight the way that we like to watch people fight. In stark contrast to Guillermo Rigondeaux, who is he is a Latin American that will get booed at every single fight against
Cuban.
a Mexican.
Yeah,
But
most
he's
Cubans are
Cuban.
Like most
So it's
Cubans
one of
are
those
like
things.
Lara was the same.
So they have a super defensive style. But in a way that's the beauty of boxing too, because different styles clash to make great fights. So that's what you want
Mike,
to see.
I don't like
way,
it though, Mike. I don't like that Rigondeaux Lara style though. It's boring, dude.
They asked me yesterday about De La Hoya.
Every once in a while, I appreciate it. Every once in a while, there's some good fights. There's some boring fights, but there's also some good boxing boxing matches, like pure boxing matches. It just depends.
Yeah, but Mike,
yesterday they
Lara
touched on LP. Oh, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Lara and Rigondeaux, those guys are very effective. They're very difficult to beat. They're very skilled fighters. So I feel like we can't. I know they maybe not come across the most entertaining, most pleasing, but some people do enjoy watching people like that. I know people that love watching Mayweather. They love watching Lara. They like that sort of style. They like the sweet science. So I think everyone.
De La Hoya versus Trinidad.
Yeah.
De La Hoya versus Trinidad is a prime example of somebody. LP asked me yesterday, hey, what do you got to say about De La Hoya? We love De La Hoya here. I'm from LA. But at the end of the day, I wish he would have bit down in his mouthpiece in the 12th round, either got dropped or dropped Trinidad. It's built into who I am. I don't know why. I appreciate the slick style that he proposed in that fight, but I got to tell you, wish he would have bowed down or at least dropped him.
JP, he didn't do that against Fernando Vargas, though.
I thought he beat Trinidad. But at the end of the day, we had a complaint here in LA. We had a complaint. I thought he beat Mosley too, to tell you the truth.
Oh, I don't know about that. But I did think he beat Trinidad. Yeah, second fight was closer.
It makes it easier, like you guys were saying. Imran said it even earlier. It makes it easier for the judges to decide what it is that they like. Now, me personally, I appreciate that slick style. Most people didn't know what they were watching when they were watching Mayweather. Most people still don't know what they're watching. They just see a boring fighter. I wish Steven was here right now, man. I wish I could have had this conversation with him. But he touched on a lot of good points. When it comes down to Mayweather, a lot of people just still don't understand that it's really difficult to dictate where the punches are thrown and whether they're landed. That's really general shit 101.
But JP, just to counter that, I like Mayweather. Right? I think it's one of the all-time great fighters ever. But the thing is, when you're paying a pay-per-view that's like $75 plus taxes, and you're falling asleep in the 7th round because Floyd is not like punching
but
right.
LP,
I want my money back. I want my money back from HBO.
I know.
They've called me a Floyd hater in the past, but I got to say this. I think that's an exaggeration, man. I never thought Floyd was boring. Ever. That's just me.
Hey, Mark,
I actually like his style.
Man.
You know that Floyd Pacquiao
Rigo
boring, though.
Rigo and Dow, yeah, but we already know the backstory to that, Imran. And Floyd Mayweather, I don't care what anybody says. There's more than enough evidence out there, video evidence. Floyd Mayweather was scared shitless of Manny Pacquiao. He was never going to fight him in any other way. That's just the reality. Even his own father told him in the corner.
Mike? You know what, Mike? You know the thing is about that fight, though. That fight had a lot of hype, a lot of attention, a lot of people watching that fight. And you know what? I know girls that like that don't even ever watch box. Are not interested in boxing. That were like so hyped for the fight that we're staying up till 4 o'clock in the morning here in the UK. And that fight for me, like I remember my granddad, like he's 90 plus, he got up and he watched the fight. And he was like, this wasn't a fight, this was rubbish, everyone was hyping it and everyone was talking about it. That really hurt the sport of boxing, that did, because all those people that tuned in to watch that fight, they were like, this is terrible. Like everyone was hyping about this fight. This wasn't a fight.
What made that fight worse is that in the 12th round when Manny Pacquiao was looking to knock out Floyd was running away, and he was like he was waving his hand. It's like, dude, man, you can't do that.
Little Penny, there was a point during the fight where when Floyd was in his corner and his dad told him, "You are fighting like you're scared."
I remember that.
Go watch it.
Yeah.
Go watch it. I'm not lying to you guys. He said you're fighting like you're scared.
His dad was screaming at him.
And I'm thinking like, well, no shit. He's been fucking scared shitless for years. Like did you guys just figure this shit out? Like, I mean, come on, dude. Like, but Imran, going back to your point, I think Manny Pacquiao, the people were relying on Manny Pacquiao to make the fight exciting, and I feel like that Manny Pacquiao. The Manny Pacquiao from earlier, from 2010, would have done that. But at that point, after being knocked out, it's impossible for your mentality not to change. I think Manny Pacquiao had that knockout in the back of his head, and he wasn't the ruthless Pacquiao like the one that we knew from the past. Because that messes with your head a lot. So like a boxing match.
Also, Mike, he was injured in that fight too, man. He had a rotator cuff injury.
Yeah.
That was bad. I thought that was not great though. That fight for boxing, I think it did do. Like, don't get me wrong. After that, we had a lot of fights that were hyped up that actually delivered. I thought Canelo Golovkin delivered. Joshua Klitschko delivered. That was a great fight. So there have been some good fights. Fury, Wilder, those have delivered. Like, you know what? Boxing got to the stage where a lot of the hype fights didn't ever deliver.
Yeah, and I remember
I think we're getting that back, LP. I think now we're getting that back.
Yeah, I remember in that 2015 fight, ESPN was showing Mayweather Pacquiao for like 2 days. Like, and the ESPN crew was actually in Las Vegas to cover that fight. And it didn't reach expectation. And you know what? To be honest, most people actually blamed Mayweather for how boring that fight was, and I don't blame them.
Yeah,
it was painful.
A lot of people seem to say that, Mayweather, Pacquiao won that fight, but no chance. I don't see how, like, Mayweather did what he had to do,
Yeah, no, he didn't win that. Pacquiao lost that fight. But
Evander Holyfield said he felt that Pacquiao won the fight.
That's because he's an offensive.
It's because Evander's old school, man. That's what I was saying. Yeah. Evander's old school. He's more about guys that make the fight, that go get the fight. You know what I mean? That the offended guy. You know what I mean? So it's all subjective, man. It just comes down to your opinion. What you like, and that's it.
I don't think there is any question that Floyd Mayweather did what it took to win that fight. But sadly, what I could say is I heard Demetrius Andrade's dad say the same thing. He said, my son isn't a knockout artist. My son takes away the tools that it takes for you to win. That's what Floyd is. But Floyd has slightly more offensive firepower, I believe, than Boo Boo. He has more offensive capability than Boo Boo. But in that case, unfortunately, I didn't see Manny Pacquiao connect, and yeah, it could have been the shoulder injury, but he definitely was painted into a corner by Floyd Mayweather's defense. We understand what we saw. We understand that we saw somebody that was it was like a python strangling something, right? Strangling its food. That's I feel like what I was seeing, little by little, real slow, real slow, real slow. But it was not exciting. It was just about as exciting as that. It was real slow, grass growing, you know.
Mike, James Deere makes a point. He says, yeah, he told him he was fighting like he was scared because he wanted him to knock him out in case the judges tried to rob him.
He also, I think, hold on, let me see. He also said Manny was injured. His ego was injured. I think that's it there, man. I don't think he did. That deserves a response from me, man.
Mike, your response is always hilarious. That's why I like coming you on, dude. You and James D. You and James D are like you and James D are like Pacquiao and Mayweather, man.
You got to spice it up every once in a while. Look, Imran thinks he's slick. I know he was baiting me on that. You know, I mean, I know he was baiting me.
Yeah. I was putting. No, because it was. I'm pretty sure he was replying to you because you were the one that said that. So that's why I asked you the question for a response.
I was reading his comments, man. I was reading his comments. I mean, it's pretty obvious that, you know, while we were talking about being bored, or some were talking about being bored, not necessarily me. We know that James Deere is the opposite. You know, he's bringing the oils out. He's bringing the paper out when he's going to watch Floyd, and he's going to have an orgasmic time. You know what I mean? That's the way he's going to do it. That's the way he sees Floyd. Well, sleep. You know, everybody's different.
You know what? I will say, you know, when Floyd fought, I don't know why. I think it was one of the fights where I can't remember which fight it was. I actually did fall asleep. No, I'm actually being serious. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't the fact that Floyd was boring. It was probably the fact that I was tired, man, because the fights are 4 a.m. in the morning here in the UK. I stayed up, and sometimes when you get to like 4, half 4, we're out here, man. We're out. So like, I actually fell asleep, you know, because the fight was taking the pattern as a normal Floyd fight. And I think I fell asleep and then obviously woke up in the morning and it was the normal Floyd winning on unanimous decision. I can't even remember. Was it the Cotto fight? I can't remember.
Imran
fight. But
yeah. When I saw Floyd versus Baldomir, I actually fell asleep and I had a dream that it was actually a great fight, like when it's an exciting fight. And then when I watched it again, oh my God, I fell asleep again. So, anyways, I thought I'd just put it out there.
Yeah, you know what? I think Floyd is Floyd, man. He made his mark. He's left his mark on boxing. You know, he's. I reckon some of it good, some of it bad. But I feel like you know the bad stuff is that a lot of fighters today are scared to lose their O, man. That really frustrates me. I feel like the fans. I think he's also changed the fans' mind, where a lot of the fans now think a fighter's a bum if he loses. You know, loses O, and now all of a sudden they become a bum. You know, and like even Teofimo's dad, Mike, when he lost. Oh, you know, we can't be as great as Floyd Mayweather now because, you know, he's lost my O, so Floyd will say he's lost. I was like, firstly, why are you comparing your son to Floyd anyway, right? Yeah. Secondly, there's fighters in the past that many view greater than Floyd that lost.
Yeah, that's terrible, man.
I'm literally, you should have seen his dad's interview. Like, he was like, oh, you know what? Now people will say my son can't be as good as Floyd. And Floyd will say, oh, look, Teofimo lost. I'm like, why are you bringing up Floyd? Why are you bringing up Floyd and the fact that he's undefeated? Like, who cares?
But you know what, Imran? Maybe Teofimo, if he does continue to you know, win or have big fights and win big fights, even if he's number one, you could still be viewed greater. But number two, he might earn the people's respect. And that sometimes is more important to a fighter than to just have an undefeated record, you know? So it just really depends on how what's important to you. You for Floyd, that was rewarding to him, and that's cool. You can hate on that, but other fighters value other things. Like Manny Pacquiao clearly valued to be more like the people's champ and stuff like that, right? So that's what I like a fighter like, So to each their own.
But Mike, just to defend Floyd a little bit, because Floyd's gotten a lot of slack in this live stream. Floyd was probably the only fighter I've seen where he makes his opponents look like amateurs. He's the only one.
Yeah.
When Sugar Ray Robinson fought at his best, like say with Jake LaMotta, he didn't make Jake LaMotta look like an amateur. Same with Ray Leonard.
Especially when you try to box him, he would make you look really, really, really bad because Floyd, he did have trouble with pressure fighters. That's usually that was the only time where he looked beatable. But when guys would try to box him or when they were kind of slow, he would literally show you the difference in class, like big time, And he had a in a way, I mean, I felt it wasn't a spectacular style, but he had a beautiful style. He was a clean puncher. He was a clean puncher. He would land clean punches, which is what the judges like, which is, I think, one of the reasons why I think Canelo, a lot of judges like what Canelo does, right? Because if you can land big shots, clean shots, they're going to stand out. So if you can do that, that's a good way of winning rounds. And I think that's what Floyd would do. He would
also Mike, Mayweather's power was very underrated. There's a reason why not many people have mauled him. And not, because his power was highly underrated. Like when Mayweather would hit you, you're not gonna move forward. You know what I mean?
You know what I think was underrated, LP, that you bring that up. I don't think it was necessarily his power. I think it was his accuracy. His accuracy was underrated. He knew how to, because he wasn't a knockout artist. A lot of fighters who fought Floyd would say he doesn't even hit hard. But what he had, I remember most would say this, he was like, he has snap on his punches. So when he would land precise, like in places where where you wouldn't see the punch coming, or he would locate punches in the correct spots, and that matters a lot.
Hey Mike, doesn't Mayweather have the record for like the percentage in terms of like your punch attempt versus
I think efficiency, right? Efficiency, ratio, something like that.
Yeah, I think CV wants to say something because there's a noise in the background. CV, what do you want to say?
Carlos?
No, I'm just listening to the conversation and how you guys are scoring, judging, and how judges score fights. There's two fights that stand out to me: Chavez versus Whitaker, which Whitaker won, and the first Fury versus Wilder, which Fury won. I didn't hear anyone mention those two fights.
Yeah, that Fury fight was a bit close, man. Like that Fury Wilder, because Wilder knocked him down a few times.
Down twice, and those are the only rounds that I had Wilder winning. What about the other 10 rounds?
Yeah, good point. Yeah. I thought it was close.
I had Fury winning. No, I didn't have it close because Wilder got outboxed. It's the same thing with Chavez and Whitaker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same thing. So.
Yeah, good point there.
Yeah, for winning as well. So those are fights. Those are, to me, absolutely, corrupt fights, because I can't see how it was a draw for Wilder Fury and how it was a draw for Chavez Whitaker. It's night and day.
But here's the thing, though. What I would say about the Fury Wilder fight is that Wilder knocked him down in those 2 rounds. So they were 10-8 rounds, right? So automatically there, he's got a huge advantage. If the judges saw him winning 2 more rounds, that's equivalent to a draw.
Yes.
So.
And what other 2 rounds did Wilder win?
No, I'm not saying. Yeah, go on.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I can't find those other 2 rounds. I've seen the fight I don't know how many times.
But
And it's the same
in the
thing
judges'
with
perspective,
Chavez
they
Whitaker.
probably in the judges' perspective, they probably did. You know what I mean? They probably did think that maybe Fury wasn't doing a lot in a single round, and they probably thought Wilder was coming forward. Like Mike said, maybe they were favoring because Fury was on the back foot in that fight. So, and he was boxing and he was making Wilder miss and hitting while countering Wilder. But what I'm saying is maybe maybe in 2 rounds, they probably thought that, you know, Fury wasn't doing a lot and Wilder was coming forward. And that's how they scored. I don't know. You know, if a guy's knocked you down twice in a fight, it's not as straightforward. You know what I mean? It's not as straightforward. But I get where you're coming from. I thought Fury had won that fight as well, to be honest.
But CV, I give Fury a credit in the second fight and the third fight because he didn't leave it up to the judges. Like, because people don't remember, Fury was not a KO artist. He was known as like a pillow fighter, as Wilder said, you know. And then he changed his tactic to make it like so that the judges are not relevant anymore, and he knocked them down. He knocked them out in the second and third fight. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. Again, those 2 rounds, I can't find them because I do punch counts as well. And I looked at the statistics, and I just couldn't find it. I bet on Wilder to beat Fury. I put money on it. So I took my money home. I didn't lose anything. I got my money back. But when I saw that fight, Fury won it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have Fury.
And there's other questionable fights too. Rolly versus Marinez. Marinez won that fight, but they gave it to Rolly. That's straight out corruption.
But I don't think it's corruption when it happens every week. I don't think it's corruption. I just think that that's the way boxing is designed. The way they score fights is basically perfect for controversy. It's perfect for controversy because even when you break down the criteria, like clean punching, ring generalship, that's clearly subjective. Ring generalship, clearly subjective.
Yes.
Yeah, but
when you talk about defense,
but Marinez,
defense is not scored by making a guy miss. Go for it, Steven.
No, go ahead. No, I was just gonna say the Rolly Marinez fight. You could have one eye. Marinez won that fight. There's no way around it. Marinez won that fight, and to me, that's blatant corruption.
But CV, you know what you were saying before about the Fury Wilder fight? I thought that that fight was closer than, say, Pacquiao Bradley, which everyone thought Bradley won. You know what I mean? When it was called a draw, I wasn't like up in arms. You know what I mean? Whereas when they called Bradley the winner against Pacquiao in their first fight, I was up in arms because everyone can see that Manny won. You know what I mean? Whereas that first fight, I was okay, all right, it's a draw, fair enough. Like, you know, I wasn't like, it didn't struck to me until later when you watch it again. I'm thinking, oh yeah, Fury did win a lot of the rounds there.
Yeah, well, the thing, and again, you guys brought up a good point. Some people watch the overall fight, and some people watch the fight by rounds. And I watched the fight by rounds because I put money on fights. So I watched the fight by rounds. So that, especially on a fight that I put money on, like Fury versus Wilder, and I had money on Wilder. And I'm looking at that fight round by round. Wilder did not, and it's not just me, also the bar that I went to see that fight in, which was diverse, also overwhelmingly had winning that fight. So I wasn't on my own. I was with my peers.
Hey, CV, I'm just curious. You know, when you bet on boxing, are you up or are you down? Like in terms of, because CV, the reason why I'm asking this is because I think back in 2014, I was betting on boxing for 12 months because I wanted to try to see if I can do this full time. Because I thought that I knew a lot about boxing, but because I started with $1,000, right? And I bet on boxing for
Right.
12 months, and at the end of the 12 months, I was down 3,000. So then I stopped doing it, and you know what I mean? Because I couldn't get the upsets. You know what I mean? So I was wondering,
Okay.
what's your stats?
All right. Well, the thing with boxing is you're not going to limit yourself to one website. So I use bovada.lv. That's my main website. The difference with different websites is that some website may give you better odds.
Where's he gone?
Oh, he's gone.
He's gone, man. His connection went.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, I
Where's he
haven't bet
gone?
on boxing since, but it's
I wouldn't.
boxing's
I
hard to
wouldn't
Yeah.
bet
bet on
on,
boxing.
dude.
I wouldn't bet on
No, it's
boxing.
too risky,
And
man. It's
Yeah.
too
I wouldn't bet on.
But
Mike, before we head off,
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you
Yeah,
a
what's up?
question. Spence Ugas. They're saying that that's been approved by the WBA. We didn't get your opinion. We were talking about that earlier on me and Steven and LP. I wanted to get
Right.
your opinion on that.
I think that's a great move, man. That's a great move. I'm glad that happened because I kind of, if we're gonna see Errol Spence Crawford, I kind of wanted to see Spence in a somewhat competitive fight before facing Crawford to see how he looks. Because I know there was rumors out there that maybe there was a possibility that Spence would go straight to Crawford or something like that. So I like that, and then that way Spence, has if he beats Ugas, and he's gonna have the majority of the belts, and then at that point, that would put more pressure on Crawford, because then that would probably be an undisputed fight, right?
Yeah.
So characters are going to be tested, because if Spence beats Ugas and these guys still refuse to sacrifice whatever it takes to make the fight, then I'm gonna have to hold it against him, man. When it comes to like ranking fights, fighters and stuff like that, man. Because that, to me, that would be unacceptable in any sport. Like only
Mike, it would help
Yeah.
if Bud signs with the PBC.
But at this point, it doesn't even matter because he's a free agent. So he could do whatever the hell. There's no excuse now that he's tied to a network. So basically Crawford could do whatever he wants. So yeah, I mean, fighting Spence in a sense is like signing with PBC, or it would be like signing with PBC. So because he's a free agent, so it would be kind of like Canelo did. You know what I'm saying? Like you could just jump around.
Mike, I don't know if Spence can beat Ugas. I really don't.
I don't know. I don't know either. Ugas is a great fighter.
And Spence is vulnerable now.
That's the thing. That's what I was going to bring up. If we were talking about the Spence that we knew before all this, then I wouldn't even hesitate to say it was Spence. But at this point, that's going to be the intrigue of the fight. Let's see how Spence looks, and he looks great. Then, hopefully they make that fight ASAP against Crawford.
The thing is, I think I don't know, man. I might even be slightly leaning towards Ugas for some reason. I don't know. Maybe because of the fact that I think he's got eye injury now and accident. I'm not convinced if he's got over that. I know he looked good against Garcia, but I don't know whether Garcia brought it like that. I don't know, man. I might be leaning towards Ugas a little, if I'm honest.
I have faith. I have faith that Spence is gonna pull it out, man. I think he has a style to give Ugas a lot of problems. I think his work rate, if his eye holds up, I would be more concerned with since he's had a little layoff. I'm concerned on how Spence is gonna look in that weight, because I kind of feel like the time is getting harder and harder and harder for him to make 147, man. So I wouldn't even be surprised if he looks drained or something like that. You know what I mean? Which would be, it's like the eye wouldn't even matter at that point, because he's gonna look terrible no matter what. But if he's still sharp, if the eye holds up, and he's still in great shape, I think he'll outwork Ugas. Hey, who knows? Maybe possibly stop him, because I don't know if Ugas is like a durable guy like that. But I think he has the work rate. He has the style to give Ugas a lot of problems. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
You know, the other thing is I wanted to speak about is the Crawford Spence fight. How is that going to be made? Because Errol Spence at that point is going to want 60-40, and we know that Crawford ain't going to accept anything but 50-50.
That's the sacrifice that I was talking about. That's the sacrifice that I was talking about. It means they're going to have to realize that in order to make the fight, they're going to have to get close to that 50-50. Even if it means 55-45, whatever it takes. They have to get it done. If they care that much about legacy, then they'll do it, because regardless of whether it's 50-50, they're still going to get their biggest payday. They're still going to get their biggest payday, I think. So it's kind of it wouldn't make sense to me if that would be the reason why the fight, doesn't happen, because someone's just demanding 60% of the purse. That's going to be unacceptable for me.
Yeah, because Mike, just in comparison with the Pacquiao Mayweather fight, like they were doing the same thing, like negotiation. Like Floyd wanted God knows what he wanted. But in the end, it was the Pacquiao's team that had to accept the 60-40 split.
Yeah,
Manny definitely didn't want to do that because he went through hell to even get to that point, because he got knocked out with Marquez, and he's fought the better, as Amir Khan says, the better fighters, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, he wanted Mayweather in the ring, so he accepted the 60-40 fight, and I think that's what Bud has to do. He has to maybe accept a 55-45 split, even though he wants a 50-50 split, just to get him in the ring. Like,
and
what I mean?
that's a great point. But I feel like that the Crawford and the Spence situation is a little bit different. The Mayweather Manny Pacquiao situation, that's even more pathetic, because they were going to make so much money. They could have gone 50-50, and they both probably could have made $100 million. So that there was a lot of pettiness, a lot of reasons behind Floyd not accepting it.
Hey Mike, why didn't Floyd give Pacquiao the rematch, knowing that he'll make another $100 million?
You already know. We all know. We all know the reason. Let's stop acting like we don't know the reason, guys. Come on. There's more than enough evidence out there. Video. If people haven't seen, just go to YouTube and Google. Go to YouTube and put Floyd Mayweather Manny Pacquiao rant. And if that doesn't convince you that he was scared, he was petrified of Manny Pacquiao, nothing's ever going to convince you. But going back to the whole Crawford Spence, the reason why that fight is hard to make is because they want that $10 million purse, because there's just not that much money. They're not going to make $50 million each, because they're not going to sell that many pay-per-views. So even a little bit, a 60% split, a 60-40 split means a lot to them, right? Because that means that one guy is probably going to get closer to 10 million, the other one's going to get much less than that. So if we knew that they were going to sell more pay-per-views, they probably, it'd be easier for them to say, all right, well, let's go 60-40. We're both going to make 50 million plus. That's not the situation. That's the reason why they're going back and forth on that diva stuff, because there's just not that much money.
Mike, I don't think the Spence Bud Crawford fight is a million pay-per-view buys. I think it's less. Well, way less.
Yeah. They're not big enough names.
Yeah,
they're not big enough names. Exactly, they're not big enough names.
I reckon it does about 750, to be honest.
Possibly, but again, that's the reason why they're fighting for every million, literally every single million they're fighting for.
It's crazy to think, right? It's crazy to think that Spence and Crawford are two guys in their prime, and it just shows how bad, or in my opinion, the fact that a lot of the American fighters are just not promoted that well. We've got Amir Khan and Kell Brook fighting here, two guys that are well past their best, and it's probably going to do about 500,000-600,000, maybe more pay-per-view buys. And although the stadium, the arena that they were fighting in was 20,000, it sold out in 5 minutes. And if they did that in a bigger stadium, 50, 60,000, that would have sold out just as quick. And it just shows that how much the UK fans get behind boxing in comparison to the US fans.
I think British boxing fans are the best fans in the world. Next, then Mexican fans, then Puerto Rican, then probably for Philippines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who do you think wins that fight? Just to end it on this, Crawford v Spence. Who wins? Little Penny, Mike.
Oh, I've got Spence. Sorry, I got Bud Crawford winning that fight now. Maybe not before, but now, based on
I'll
what
I'll
health,
tell you after the Ugas fight. I'll tell you, man.
But if you were to go right now, on what you think?
Right now, I honestly have to give the edge to Crawford.
Yeah,
because there's too many question marks with Spence coming out like this.
You know, the thing is, what did you make of Crawford's performance against Porter?
I think I got what I expected. I mean, right before the fight, we were here live, and I think we all said that I personally had Crawford winning. I said a close decision, or he catches Porter late with something, which is exactly what ended up happening. But I will say this: I was not that's the stoppage was not what I was expecting. That type of stoppage was not what I was expecting. That was a terrible stoppage, man. Terrible stoppage. That stoppage kind of felt like it felt like Porter was watching the fight and he was thinking this fight's kind of close, but now that you got dropped twice, we're not going to win this fight unless you knock Crawford out, and that's not happening. So I'm not going to let you take a worse beating than this, and I'm just going to call it right here. That's what it felt like to me.
Mike, that's the reason why you should never have your father as your trainer.
Right.
You should always have someone that's not your father, because sometimes the father trains or looks at the fight as the father, not as the trainer. Because who knows, man? Like maybe Porter throws a haymaker and connects, and we've seen that before. Like it probably won't happen. But who knows, man? That's what Wilder was peeved off at his I can't remember who that trainer was, because Wilder has
Mark Breland.
Yeah, because Wilder has a one-hitter quitter. Like he can knock down Fury at any time. So you can't. And Mark Breland was probably thinking, like, because it's like his like adopted son per se. But in that situation, you got to let the fighter determine, or you got to ask him when he's on the stool. Like, ask him, like how what's his name? Nacho Beristain asked Oscar De La Hoya. He asked De La Hoya right into his eye. He said, "Do you want to continue?" And Oscar didn't say no, right? But he didn't say yes either. Which means in boxing terms, he wants the trainer to stop it rather than him, like the camera having Oscar like say no. So when he says,
Beristain even told Oscar, he's like, look, in my opinion, there's no point of continuing, but it's up to you. If you want to continue, then go get it. If you don't, then don't. Porter didn't even get Senior didn't even give Porter a chance. Like, he just called it himself, and I wasn't expecting that. When Sean Porter got to the press conference with the war hat, with the Marvin Hagler war hat, that's what I was expecting. I was expecting him to go out in a war fashion, but it wasn't in his control. In my opinion, Sean Porter would have. I think he said, "Yeah, I'm good to go." I think he told his dad, "I'm good to go," and then his dad out of nowhere was like, "No, I'm stopping this," and that's it.
Mike, if you watch his podcast,
strange, to be honest.
Yeah, Mike, Imran, if you watch Sean Porter's podcast, in the end, he said that he was okay with his father's decision because he trusts him. And the fact that he didn't train like what his father expected him to, and his father knew the premonition of what will happen if he continued that fight. I don't agree with it, but Sean Porter did say on his podcast that he accepts his father's decision.
It's because it was premeditated, guys. That's just a reality. It was premeditated. It's no coincidence that after him losing the fight, he also retires. So they were already thinking before the fight, depending on how the fight goes, if we lose, we're probably going to retire. So the way the fight went, and after him getting dropped, I just think Porter was like, that's it. Let's pull the plug. We got paid. We had a great career. This is it. You know what I mean? Let's just call it a career, and that's what it is. I'm going to protect you. I don't want you to end up all fucked up, and that's how it went down. And that's a smart decision. I'm not going to criticize him for it. I'm just saying, like, as a fan, that was, in my opinion, bad stoppage.
I for someone who's had a reputation of being a warrior, like Sean Porter, I don't think I don't like him going out like that. Like for example, with Pacquiao, he went out in his own terms. Like, he wanted to fight the best welterweight out there, which was Spence. He didn't get that fight. Okay, next man up, which is Ugas, which is even more dangerous because he's a counterpuncher. And man, he put it all in there. He didn't have any legs, but he went out like a warrior. And I think that, in my opinion, Sean Porter, he didn't go, like, he went in to boxing as a warrior and he came out like not a warrior. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't like it, Mike, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
Yeah,
I'd have to agree.
Same.
Hey, Imran, I've noticed that you've gotten a lot of Mexican followers now, which is great. Like, because
not just like a lot of Americans as well. To be fair, like, just a lot of American fans as well, not just.
But Imran, I've noticed that there's a lot of Mexicans now who are on your live stream. You know what I mean? And I've noticed that your views have gone up dramatically. I've noticed that, like, because I see that sometimes. Like, it's not like it was before. Like, say, and Imran, I'm happy for you, man. Like, because you've done the work, dude.
Yeah. To be fair, still not great, but it's definitely getting growing.
It
Imran,
takes time.
It
takes time.
Yeah. But Imran, I would tap into that Mexican. There's a lot of Chicanos who love to talk about boxing, right? I would tap into that, mate, because that's where the money is, dude.
Yeah, the majority are Mexican Americans.
Anyone that wants to jump on, they can jump on and talk boxing.
Yeah, if you really think about it, it's Mexico that runs boxing, because they're the ones that pay the most pay-per-views. Like, you know what I mean? It's not a coincidence that Canelo and guys like, De La Hoya, Barrera, Morales, Juan Manuel Marquez, it's not a coincidence that these guys are popular. It's because Mexico, they're really, like the British fans, they really support their fighters.
Yeah, they do, to be fair. Yeah, they do. The Mexican fans are Mexican fans are
they
very
love boxing.
About boxing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of their culture.
Yeah, defo part of their
and they
culture.
buy their pay-per-views, whereas, to be honest, with Filipinos, they tend to, like, because I'm half Filipino, they tend to, before buying the pay-per-view, they'll see if their auntie or their cousin are buying the pay-per-view, and then they go to their house. Whereas I'm not Mexican. I don't want to. I feel like Mexicans, that they probably would tend to buy that pay-per-view. You know what I mean?
It's because you know how Mexicans are. I could tell you, man, because I'm Mexican American. You know how Mexicans are.
Yep.
Mexicans can have a party, right? And if someone out the blue says, "Hey, there's a big fight happening," they don't hesitate. Oh, what? All right, let's buy it right now. Boom. Even if it's not a fight that they're interested in, if people want to see it, if it's gonna make people happy and they're celebrating something, they'll have an event. You know what I mean? They'll include everything. You know what I mean? So they're just not they're not cheap in that way. You know what I mean? They're willing to spend for.
Hey, Mike, in Philippines,
even if it's not. Where
Hey, Mike,
are you
Filipinos
at,
are the same.
LP? Are you in the States? Where are you at?
No, New Zealand. Hey, Mike, in Philippines, we have the same. Like in Filipino culture, we have the same thing too. We have boxing parties where like if you want to come into a house and watch the fight, you have to bring in food. You know what I mean? And like
Right.
the house is like 30 deep, right? And the girls who are watching the fight, they're like screaming as if it's like a horror movie, and it makes the parties even more exciting because, like for example, whenever Pacquiao gets hit right in the face, which is a lot, the girls are like screaming. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it makes the fight
Yeah.
even more exciting. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get you. I get you. Like big family gatherings make these fights like a big deal, because everybody gets amped up and animated and everything, and it makes for a good time. So no, I get
Yeah.
you. I get what you're saying, man.
Yeah,
I don't know
Mike.
how it is in the
Sometimes
UK. Imran, big family, Imran. When you guys watch fights, is it just
Yeah,
you
we
and
do.
your
We
and your?
do. We do. Like generally, we do. Like my brothers and my dad and my cousins come over to my house, and we generally do watch together as a family. Not so much as friends or have parties and stuff, but like we do watch as a family. We definitely watch
Okay.
boxing together. Like we'll all get up when it's a big fight. We'll get together and we'll watch the boxing. On our we got a massive TV that we watch it on, and we just all get in the room and just watch it together. To be honest, it's much better watching it together. That's why sometimes I don't do live watch-alongs, because I prefer just
Yeah.
enjoying it and watching it.
Right.
Because it's just
I've been meaning to
there's
ask you, Imran. Salman
yeah
is your brother, right? Salman.
yeah.
How come he never comes on the live?
He did sometimes. He just finds it too long. He doesn't
Oh, he
like
does.
coming on lives. He prefers the videos because he goes, last time I did a live with him a long time ago, and it was long, and he goes, oh, I can't be doing that, man. But he does watch it sometimes, and once or twice he has come on as well.
Because
Yeah, he
he's
knows
got.
his
I could tell
boxing.
that he's. That's why you guys know your boxing. I could tell. Like
Yeah,
I want to see him debate some guys here, man. That's why I was
yeah.
asking you, because he's
But by the
always
way,
got some
Imran,
good
you know
takes.
when Salman is speaking, you should ask him to move forward a little bit because sometimes I can't hear what he's saying.
Yeah.
Because
I will do.
he's behind you most of the time. Maybe ask him to move forward so that way
Yeah.
we
I
can
will.
hear it clearly.
I will. Maybe it's just where we're sitting sometimes.
Yeah,
I'll tell him to be in line next time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Defo.
Hey, Imran, that
Defo.
you know what you
I
said
like
before
I,
about the
I like that one video you guys did where I think it might have been the first time, Imran, where I've kind of seen you like show some emotion, man. And I was
Oh
like,
yeah, I remember that.
okay, that's what I'm talking about. I was like, all right, that's what I'm talking about. It's about time.
Yeah, I
Like
remember.
I thought you were gonna hit your brother at one point. I was like, oh, are they gonna wrestle? Are you guys
Yeah,
gonna
Imran, I was
box right here?
actually yeah, Imran, I was gonna type in there that take it easy on your brother, but I don't want to get in between you and your brother. That's your business. But yeah,
Well,
I
you know
remember
what?
that,
To
Mike.
be honest, quite a few people wrote that in the comment section on that video, because it was
Yeah,
we had a few actually. We had a few. There's a few videos that we got back and forth, and it got heated.
yeah.
He has his opinion. I have my opinion. I think there was one about Joshua Usyk where he said Joshua was gonna knock Usyk out, and I said Usyk would beat Joshua. And he was like, "Nah, no way that Usyk beats Joshua."
Hey guys, can I just, in terms of parties, can I just share something? When Pacquiao fought Morales the first time, because out of all of the three kings of Mexican featherweights, it's the Philip from a Filipino point of view, it was Morales that we feared the most, not Marquez, not Barrera. It was Morales because Morales was like Pacquiao, but